Alright, it should be live. Should be live. Alright, just checking volumes quick before we get started.
Seashells, seashells, by the seashore.
You know what it is, though, it's that delay.
Yeah.
I mean, it helps with the buffer and all that, but
Yeah.
I don't know how necessary it is. Yeah, sounds good. Alright, sorry about the delay, folks. We are in business. So, good deal. Alright, so welcome back to Cascade Studios. We are doing part 2 of our faction focus for the Adepta Sororitas Sisters of Battle today. And, you know, it's been a little while since we did the first one. We do apologize for the delay, but life comes up, things happen, we gotta work around it. So, but we are here. We promised we would finish this up, so we are here to finish up the data sheets today, and we're gonna go over Piding Pain a little bit, just talk about the new character and some other stuff that's upcoming for us as far as the channel goes.
Yeah, we'll just kind of talk about what we're doing in the future, leading up to the Drakari Codex. We're definitely going to give you a lot of content about that.
Yeah. So, well, I think where we left off last was we've just finished talking about everything except for the data sheets. So that's what we're going to be getting into today. I think before we kick things off, was there anything else we needed to cover? Oh, obviously, yeah, the most obvious of everything. So, obviously, we appreciate you guys' support. So, thank you guys for showing up and hanging out with us today. We're going to be back with more content, obviously, here in the near future. We probably won't be doing a game on Tuesday, but the following Tuesday and potentially weekends, we're going to be getting in more games. So, just keep an eye out for that, and we'll be trying to post make sure you guys are aware of it before too much time goes by. But again, thank you guys for your support. Leave a like on this if you guys enjoy this, and then make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and then slap the notification bell so you guys don't miss any of our other content. So let's go ahead and kick things off, I guess, huh? Where do we start?
Yeah, starting off with the good old Canoness. So this is your plain Jane generic HQ choice, and she is really good. She only comes in at like 55 points, and you get so much out of that.
Indeed.
You get 5 wounds, 3 up armor save, a 4 up invuln.
Yeah.
So she's highly durable already.
Yeah.
Web skill 2, ballistic skill 2, so she's fighty.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, there's nothing too impressive about her. You know, strength, toughness 3. She comes with like a chain sword. But one of her strengths is just how customizable she is.
Yeah.
Between all your warlord traits and your relics you can give her. She's got Axe of Faith, Sacred Rites, Shield of Faith, which is
that's a 6 up invuln, and then being able
yeah.
to back
Well,
up.
I mean, she's already got the 4 up invuln, but she can deny psychic powers too.
Yeah. Yeah, she fits the mold for Sisters very well. She is the epitome of Sisters Battle.
Yeah.
This lady, she's very customizable, and one thing that, you know, even though we're talking about like her stat line not being like super amazing, just because it's like the basic Sister stat line with, you know, some character rules. But that weapon skill, ballistic skill 2 really is something special for Sisters because they don't really have a whole lot of that in the army. You know, you look at Repentia, you look at a lot of the other stuff with weapon skills. A lot of them drop down to like Repentia drop down
like
to 4.
Like 4. Weapons skill 4 for most of your army.
It's 3 base, but it drops down to 4, and then everything else in the army is just flat 4 for the most part. So yeah, they don't, in terms of their fighting, like they kind of struggle a little bit with their weapon skills, making sure they hit. And those, anytime they get like a reduction to hit, it just makes it really hard for them to be accurate.
Oh yeah.
With that said, you know, there's ways to fix that and get around it. But the Canoness just automatically by herself just does not care. She's incredibly accurate for what you get out of her. She has the old 8th edition rules for characters, so she's not giving anything out to core yet. It's all just basically her order stuff.
Yep.
Which makes it really good because she can now reroll her own 1s to hit. She's hitting on 2s. And then, like you said, she's super customizable. You know, basically you can throw just about anything on her. They did limit some of the stuff she used to be able to take through a lot of them old like special weapons into Legends.
Yes.
But you know, she still has a very, very broad variety. And I think with all the other stuff you can add on to her, like the Rod of Office, all the different relics and stuff that you can add to them, she's just one of the biggest badass girls in this army.
Yeah, she definitely is. She acts a lot like a Space Marine captain for your army. She has an aura, lead the righteous, gives reroll 1s to hit for friendly order models. Anyone with the order, including herself, will get to reroll 1s. She also can be given a Rod of Office, which will increase the range of this aura by another 3 inches, effectively doubling it.
Yeah, 9 inches.
So you only need like one
ones.
canoness, and she's going to be covering a very large portion of your army.
For sure.
And with that being said, she's so cheap, and you get so much out of her. She can help buff your army. She can definitely do her own fighting, defend herself. She's not gonna die too easily to like snipers with her 4 invulns. You're definitely gonna want to at least take one of her, at least one, like every game. Well, and part of that is because you don't have a lot of HQs in this book to begin with.
Yeah. Well, and she's a captain on top of that. I mean, reroll 1s is never anything to...
No, it's never nothing to seize that.
Yeah, you can't complain about that. One thing I also think that's really interesting about these characters now, you know, in the past, people just think about them like, just like I said, like they're like captains. However, you go look at these sheets, like, you know, she comes with, you can get a Brazier of Holy Fire, you can get the Rod of Office, the Null Rod.
Yeah, the Null Rod, yep.
It's like, it's almost like she has her own relics already added to her data sheet, just there as options you can take. In addition to being able to take an actual relic. So, I mean, she gets a lot of different stats and stuff. And of course, you gotta gear them like a specific way, but she gets a lot of different things on top of being able to take those relics. And I think the nice thing is you can really gear these canonesses up to be any way you want them to be. They can be like super buffy type canonesses. They can be very strong in terms of like their fighting power. I remember back when they did the beta codex, before they started limiting like what you could take, and before when you were able to take the Eviscerator, before they made it a legend item.
Yeah, but that's with the Eviscerator.
Yeah, you can throw the Eviscerator on her, and then she could run around with that thing at strength ×2, and back then you used to add any plus strengths to her stat line before the ×2, so you could make her like strength 8. AP -4 and like 2 damage.
Yep.
So she was pretty insane back then. But even then, I mean, nowadays the Bloody Rose one is still nothing to joke about. She is incredibly strong in combat.
Yep.
You can still get the +1 with the banner and all that other stuff too. So, I mean, they can be a real nightmare in combat.
Yeah,
and,
she actually has 4 attack space, so Bloody Rose would be 5 attacks.
Yep, 5 attacks, and then, like I said, you can add the banner to make her strength 4, and then it would actually be strength 4 plus. I assume you can take these. Yeah, you take the Blessed Blade, or you could take the Relic Chain Sword, which actually
the Chain Sword of Many Slayings.
Yeah, so then she gets like a whole bunch more attacks, and she's just absolutely vicious in combat. So yeah, I think these characters are really neat. I love just how unique you can make them, and just you can kit them out however you want to do a specific job, and they fill that role so well. When you look at like the rest of the characters in the Sisters Army, you know, there are quite a few named characters, but they don't really have a lot of extra characters like that are just non-named ones where you can take that kind of stuff. Most of them are in the elite slots, so...
Yeah, so there's plenty of characters in the books, but as far as HQs, because you need HQs to get detachments usually, you only have like 2 non-named HQs you can choose from. I think it's just the Canoness and the like Missionary.
Well, and then
otherwise you're looking at named characters, so...
They did add the Palatine, but we'll talk about her later down the road. Palatine's a little different story because she doesn't have a points cost yet, so...
Short story, she's like a Space Marine Lieutenant. Yeah. But we'll get into that.
Yeah. So, but I think, unless you want to talk about anything else, I think that pretty much
I think I was just going to cover the Null Rod. If she's she takes a Null Rod, and she's within 18 of a Psyker, subtract 1 from Psychic tests, and deny those tests.
Yeah.
So she can already deny with her Shield of Faith by herself, and then she has a Null Rod, she affects those psychic powers even more.
Yeah. Dropping that down by 1 can make it even
harder. So now she's a captain, she can be very fighty, and she can stop psychic powers, and yeah, she's just a very well structured army that can, and if you're not running at least one canoness, you're probably missing out.
Yeah. I think, you know, there are ways to run the army without them. But the thing is the fact that all of your order gets benefits from her reroll 1s, you really, like you said...
I don't think anyone else does that.
no, there's not. And what's weird is like most things nowadays, it's core, it's
Yep.
non-vehicle stuff like that. She can sit back and give rerolls to like 3, immolators or rhinos or
Yeah, it's any order unit. Your vehicles.
anything. I mean, even the exorcists. So you could
Yep.
like rock 3 exorcists and get reroll 1s on all 3
Oh,
of them.
I've seen it before.
You just
three,
watch them demolish.
3 exorcists in the corner, and you just take a bare bones cannon that's right there for the rerolls.
Exactly right,
And she's
yeah.
cheap enough. She's like 55 points on that.
Yeah, something like that. She's very cheap. She's very cheap for what you get out of her, and
Yep.
the fact that you can gear her any way you want. Like you said, you can take a bare bones one, and then she stays cheap and doesn't have any of that special stuff, but she doesn't need it when she's staying back anyway. So,
Yep.
yeah, I think overall she's probably one of the better characters in the game, arguably. Stat wise, she's a little
Arguably.
low, but honestly, I don't think that's a problem with her being a character,
Mhm.
and the fact that you can still beef her up to be really strong. So.
Yeah.
Funny enough, even like you can make her quite durable too, because you get the
Well, she's
AP
already
minus
durable.
2. Get the AP
But yeah.
minus 2 equals 0 with a 4-up invuln. Plus you can take like the Relic Curious, which gives her like a 5-up Fatal Pain.
Yep.
There's another one that gives her like a 3-up invuln. So there's a
Yep.
lot of really neat ones in there to make them super durable if you really want to do that. So there's some options there in terms of like how you want to get them out, but just being so customizable is massive for them. And then that reroll once to hit. I don't expect that to stick around for the vehicles forever. But
No, it'll
as
probably
of
get
right
switched to
now,
4.
I think that's part of why Sisters are doing so well in 9th edition. They just got so many bodies that throw on points, and then those rerolls that add to vehicles and all the other bigger units, it's just so massive.
Mhm.
So, but anyway, moving on to I think next Celestine, yeah.
Yeah, Celestine. You know her, you love her. She's the angel.
She's the Emperor's Angel. Yep.
Yep. So my personal opinion of Celestine is she's a bit too expensive for what you get, because one of the reasons is she's 170 by herself, and then you're usually taking her 2 Gemini with her because she boosts them up, and she makes them better, and they can bodyguard for her.
Yeah.
So you're generally taking them with her, and at that point you're paying, I believe, like 205 points.
I think they're still they're like 20.
for this like
points
trio
apiece.
of characters.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of points. Now if you're paying 200 points, you definitely want to be able to like take on a unit by itself, and I don't know if she can quite do that. She has plenty of attacks, and she's quite durable. She's got strength.
4.
Strength plus 4 swords, so
Yeah.
she goes up to strength 7.
Mhm.
And it's flat damage 2 and it's AP 3.
Yeah.
And she's got 6 attacks. So she can definitely lay the hurt on something.
Yeah.
However, I just feel like the strength 7 with me is really awkward because
It's kind of in a weird position.
you can't wound like Primaris Marines on 2 at that point.
Yeah.
So you're only wounding them on 3s.
Yeah.
And it's AP 3, so they still get a save. It is flat 2 damage, so you will kill them.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll force them to a 6-up save, and then they'll get their 6-ups, and if they fail, they just outright die, which is nice. I'm in a similar boat. So here's the thing: is Celestine from the beta edition to, or I should say 8th edition, to Celestine in the Codex. She lost a wound. She used to be 7 wounds. She lost a
she's
wound.
down to 6.
In terms of her fighting power, she doesn't do what she did before, and in some ways I'm okay with that.
I remember her going like toe to toe with greater demons.
Yeah, and
I don't know if she can do that anymore.
the thing is like Celestine in the past, I would never have thought twice about just like launching her forward turn 1 and going straight into combat with everything I could get into combat with, and just watching her rip stuff apart. And then if she dies, she just gets back up and deploys anywhere she wants to go. Now you don't get to do that anymore. I mean, you can still launch her forward and do the same thing. Problem is that she might not kill what you need her to kill, and then when she goes down, she has to start back to her closest possible spot from where she died at.
Yep.
So, granted, you are outside of an inch of an enemy, but at the same time, now, if she dies in combat in your turn after launching her forward, when she gets back up, assuming she gets back up on that 2+, now she's literally right in your opponent's face, and that exact turn, they can turn around and shoot her and kill her again. And there's nothing there to protect her. So it is a bit of a problem. With that said, though, I think you almost have to treat her differently than how we used to. She is quite expensive. I don't deny that at all. With that said, she is the only other way to get the additional +1 to your invuln from Shield of
Yes.
Faith. So
She
if
has
you
a
want an
more,
army-wide 4-up invuln, you have to take her because she's the one that gives that. It's her Saintly Blessings. It improves all of their Shield of Faith by 1, and then 2 for Gemini Superiors.
Yeah. So the Gemini Superiors will have 4-up invuln.
Yeah.
Which
They'll
is
get it
nice.
just by being near her.
Yep.
But you know, you can combine the banner, your magnifier with her to give your army a 4-up army-wide bubble.
Yep.
Feel no pain set or a 4-up invuln. So
Yep.
she's necessary for that.
Yeah.
Which
Because
is,
her ability is different than the Magnifier, so they
Yeah.
actually stack together.
they do, yeah. And I think because of that, it's almost. I'd argue she's almost a must-have in the army, primarily because of that. Because it's hard to say, well, is a 4+ better than is a 4+ better than a 5+ when you're paying the extra points to get it? But at the same time, an army-wide 4+ when you got 150 models on the board, it will make a big difference in the long run. So having that extra +1 does make a huge deal, even though you're paying a premium of 100 extra points for a character that you wouldn't otherwise pay. But that rule alone, I think, is partly why she's worth her points. With that said, you go back and look at her stats. She's definitely not as good as she used to be in terms of being by herself. But I don't think she's designed for that anymore. Now she's more designed to stay with the army and then help the army out, support them where they need to support the most. And then you're not going to send her out as an assassin to try and kill stuff unless you're desperate to do it.
And that's why I feel like the problem is with her is she seems so geared to be this smash captain.
Yeah.
And yet she's got these saintly blessings, so she wants to stick with the group.
Yeah, she does.
It's kind of very weird.
Yeah, I feel like the way I feel about her is the same way I feel about Kayvon Shrike. Kayvon Shrike, the chapter master of the Raven Guard, is exactly the same thing. He gives all those cool buffs and whatnot to the army. He's chapter master, so you get the core, pick a unit, they get to reroll all hits.
Yep.
He gives the reroll ones, and then he's got a whole bunch of other cool stuff. He wants to stay with the army, but in terms of the way he's geared, his blackout pistol being an 18-inch range pistol for 2 shots that assassinate stuff, and then the fact that he's got those nasty lightning claws that just eviscerate things. He's really weird because he's geared to be a smash type captain, and then at the same time to stick with the army. So it's you're kind of pulled in 2 different directions, just like with Celestine.
I think we've seen that on the table here with your Vanguard. Actually, is I need my snipers to reroll, but Strike's way over there.
Yeah.
And I can't reroll here because the lieutenant's over there.
Yeah. You're almost forced
you
to
get so
take
spread out.
You're almost forced to take extra captains in order to be able to work that around with Space Marines. But you can't do that with Celestine. She can't go in 2 different directions. She's got to pick a direction, and if you go and launch her forward to do what she's statistically designed to do, then she loses all those. Your whole army loses all those cool ores that you should have in your army at all times.
Yeah.
So it's a problem, but at the same time, it's kind of
So
I still feel like she fits because if you stick her in that bubble, and then if somebody wants to launch something forward, well, now you can use her to counteract their melee and just knock them away from your bubble, essentially. It protects your, it gives you a melee unit to be able to protect the units that you don't want in melee. So.
Yep. So she's just she's not bad modeled by any means, in my opinion. You take her, I feel she's not going to be a bad play, or should I say a bad addition to your army. She's not locked in any order, so she works in any army.
Yeah.
So she can fit in there very easily. So that's a plus for her. I just feel like she's so geared to being this sort of smash captain. I feel she's just a little shy.
Yeah.
Like I said, her strength 7 feels a little awkward.
Yeah.
The damage 2 cannot sometimes not be enough. Say you're fighting Abaddon, he'll drop that to 1, and then you have no chance.
Yeah. Well, in Death Guard 2 is another one too, where they're all -1s.
Now she does have a 2-up armor and
4-up invuln.
and a 4-up invuln,
Yeah.
so she's durable in that respect, but she's still only toughness 3.
Yeah.
So lasguns are wounding on 4. Now they have to get through the 2-up armor, but
Yeah.
when you're just soaking up 20 wounds because your toughness just isn't there on your 200-point model, it's
Well, her durability exclusively comes down to her miraculous intervention ability.
Yep.
And the fact that she can get back up when she dies, it's pretty much allows you
she
to.
gets back up with full wounds.
Yeah, full ones, but and it's on a 2+. But she has to get back up as close as she possibly can to where she died at, and still be outside of each of your enemy models. But the thing is you're relying on, first of all, a die roll to even get her back, which is a real problem for durability. In addition to the fact that you're also relying on the fact that they won't turn around and kill her in the next phase.
Yeah, you also can't use miracle dice on that. So like 1 in every 6 games you play her,
Yeah,
you just roll 1 and she doesn't get up.
that's right.
Like she has 6 wounds, so she can get hit by like Thunderhammer twice, and then you roll 1 and she's gone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of durability, she is probably the most durable Sisters infantry type unit.
Yes.
But when you compare her to like large squads and stuff,
Mm.
in a lot of times you're going to be able to say, well, I'd rather take this 200-point squad of Repentia over taking Celestine.
Yep.
Because they're in terms of what they're going to do throughout a game, they're going to probably end up doing more than what she'll do. She's just one of those. She's like a centerpiece type unit where like you.
Oh yeah, she's a beautiful sculpt.
She's great to use because she's gorgeous. She's a great sculpt.
Releasing the dumps.
She's got lots of cool stuff going on with her. And then the fact that she has that big army buffing thing. If you want to make your army durable, that's kind of the way to do it. But you can almost kind of sacrifice that a little bit and potentially put something else in her place. So I think I'm kind of in agreement there where she's not absolutely have to have her. The Canoness is one of those where it's just like, yes, you're taking one.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting at is you're paying, because you're taking the Gemini, you're essentially paying like 200 points for her.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, like the Canoness is only 55 points, the Preachers and other characters are only like 45, 50 points. It's like, I can get like almost 3 or 4 characters for the same price as Celestine, so it's like, what do you really need more, what's going to benefit you more?
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think ultimately she's not a terrible pick. She just has a few weaknesses to be around.
Yeah, there's a few things you got to get around. Just to and the thing is like you said, there's other characters in here that you can take too and kind of fill that spot.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, you're not going to miss a beat most of the time. So, I love her as a character. I love her rules, everything about her. But yeah, there are games where I'd be like, I don't necessarily need to have her on my list. So, especially if there's something I really want on my list. So. But yeah, that covers Celestine, so we'll go ahead and move on to the Triumph here.
The Triumph of St. Catherine. So this is the funeral procession in the middle of a battlefield.
Yes, funeral procession it is.
I love and hate this model because it's so cool that it's like almost just a single model, but it's like a collection of 6 or 7 sisters all carrying around St.
I
Catherine.
think it's 5 plus the body, and then they got all the little cherubims flying above. So,
so it's a really weird but interesting way they kind of made that into a single model.
Yeah.
So the Triumph has 18 wounds, but because they're all infantry, it's only toughness 3.
Yeah.
And it has like a 3-up save because of the power armor, and then she has a 4-up embalm, just like most of your named characters do, because they all have like the Rosarias?
The Rosarias, yeah.
And then on top of that, she's carrying around like 5 relics, so you have like 5 aura abilities.
Yeah.
Well, not aura abilities, but 5
relics.
very unique abilities, and they're all designed to like increase your forces or stop enemy psychic powers and stuff to that effect.
Well, they're relics that don't take up relic slots.
Yes.
So they just kind of come built into her, which I think is pretty cool. Like you mentioned here, the Presidium Protectiva. This thing is cool because it's not just a Rosarius. It's a Rosarius that gives the 4-up embalm plus a -1 to hit at all times.
Yeah.
So, I mean, on an 18 wound model, that's basically going it's going to be the center of attention. It's going to be the model that's probably targeted the most throughout your in your army.
Just
like the Silent King, if
it is infantry and it is a character, but it has 18 wounds, so it can't use Lookout Sir.
Yes, so it can't use the character rule for Lookout Sir. In addition to that, too, prior to the FAQ, they actually had it so she could not benefit from obscuring terrain because she was 18 or higher. And then that's a little nasty rule about flyers and models with 18 or higher.
Yep.
However, they did fact her to count her as only, I think, 9 instead when you're considering whether or not she's obscured. So she can benefit from obscuring, which I think is huge. The fact that she's infantry allows her to benefit from being able to breach. She's able to, she can move through walls, go up and down.
She can scale.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big base, but she basically gets all the benefits that
like
an infantry model would normally get.
Flyer base, a little smaller?
Yeah, it's about the size of a Riptide base. Or, a flyer base, I guess would be an accurate term. So, I think in terms of what you get out of this model, it's interesting because it's like, it's literally an eggs in one basket kind of model.
It really is.
But she's not like incredibly expensive either. That's another thing that's kind of
No,
weird.
she's not too.
She's
Well,
only a couple hundred, like 100, 200. Just I think she's just shy of 200.
I think she's in the same boat as Catherine.
Yeah,
And those aren't accurate.
yeah. I don't think these are the more updated ones. She's
Yeah,
like right around
she's
that
like
cost.
185, I want to say.
Yeah, I think she's something like just shy of 200, or maybe she's right at 200.
Yeah, 195 maybe.
Let's see here.
But
195 points.
195, yeah.
Where Celestine is 170, so.
170, but you're going to take the Gemini, so.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
So now the Triumph here, the stat line's actually like kind of weird because like as a character, like she's almost like not a character in terms of their stat line.
Yeah, she's almost like this.
They're like elite sisters, but they're not quite HQ level sisters.
Yeah.
So they're they get the 3+ ballistic, 3+ weapon skill, which is still
They're
better
like,
than the standard sister.
What is
It's
it,
not quite as good.
company champions for Space Marines?
Yeah, they're like the Celestians, essentially.
Yeah.
And I think if you want to look at them that way, that's probably the most accurate way to look at them. They kind of fill that veteran style unit
Yep.
in terms of the stat lines. And 18 wounds, I think, is just a culmination of all different models added together, plus the protective field and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, in terms of what you get out of her, I mean, she is literally a centerpiece. That is exactly what
she's
she's
another
designed to do.
centerpiece, just like Celestine.
She's a nasty one though. Like
Yeah.
all of her different icons and simulacrum, all the relics just do something great. Every one of them.
It's almost like you said, putting all your eggs in one basket. Instead of taking like 5 to 7 canonesses, you just kind of shove them all together onto one base.
Yeah.
And it's representative of that. Like,
Well, they only take one HQ slot too.
Yep,
So-
only takes one HQ slot. So like they all have relic weapons. So it'll be up to strength 5, AP 1 damage.
Yeah, you get one that's
And-
special, like it's the Martyr Sword, and she gets up to 4 attacks. And then you
Because
Mhm.
it's like 5 or 7 sisters, you get 14 attacks when you're at full wounds.
so it's 4. It's 4 with the Martyr Sword, and then you get 10 with the
Yep, one with
the
the
relic
Martyr Sword.
weapons. And the relic weapons aren't too shabby either. I mean, they're
Oh.
strength +2, -1. They're like equivalent to a Space Marine with a power sword.
Yeah, pretty
without
close.
the extra AP.
Yeah.
So, or I should say more like a chain sword, I guess would
Yep.
be more accurate. But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, strength 5, AP -1 with 10 attacks. The only thing I don't particularly care about is the fact that she doesn't get the rerolls, but you can always throw a Canoness nearby. And
No.
I don't know if they get the order reroll for that. They do not. Okay.
Nope.
So they wouldn't get the rerolls at all. But
So if you're next to so that won't work. But she is weapon skill 3, and then she does benefit from her own one of her relics.
yeah, she
Gives +1 to hit,
rolls,
which will affect herself.
Yeah.
So she's hitting on 2s with 14 attacks.
Yeah. As long as she's got that relic up, she's good.
Yeah, so this is a lot more of a character who can touch something and just make it disappear just through the sheer number of attacks.
Yeah. Well, no, quality too. I mean,
Yeah.
4 strength 3 or strength 6 AP -3 2 damage is already enough to kill most little characters, and then you add in an additional 10 10 attacks on top of it too. Yeah, it will chew through stuff pretty quick. Like you said,
Yep.
through sheer number of attacks alone. The fact that this one model gets 14 attacks is already pretty nuts.
Because
And they're all
she has
cool.
18 wounds, she does degrade, so she goes down to like 8 attacks and then 6.
Right.
That was the other real downside to her, is when she starts bracketing, you have to decide which relics you're going to lose, because you start with 5,
Yep.
and then you go down to 2, and then you go down to 1.
Yeah.
So you have these 5 relics, and they do different things, from like allowing your active face to be used again, the +1 to hit one.
Yep.
So when you take that bracket, you go down to 2 relics, and all of a sudden you have to figure out how to get rid of
3 of the
3
relics.
of these really cool abilities that
Yeah.
you may not be needing, because they're all fairly relevant.
Yeah, they all can play a role. And what's
And
nice
it's like
though,
pulling teeth.
what's nice though about it is the fact that none of them are so necessary that you absolutely have to
Yeah.
have them. So you kind of just pick whichever ones are benefiting you at the moment
Yep.
and utilize it. What's even more interesting, and we'll get into this further on down the road, the Hospitaller actually can play a role in how she fares throughout a game as well.
Yeah.
Because the Hospitaller can heal anything that's not order locked and order locked models. So it's not,
I believe so, yeah.
yeah, it's not order when she heals. So she can even heal the Triumph, which is quite interesting.
Yep.
With that said, that's the only model that can support her, other than herself. So it can be a problem, but you can bring yourself back.
Otherwise,
up
I believe
brackets.
there's a stratagem for?
That is an order stratagem, I think.
That's an order.
So, yeah, unfortunately, I think there's no way to really get her back up without the Hospitaller. But if you got the two of them, sitting together, and she does get bracketed, over a couple of turns, she can get her back up, and she's doing just fine.
Mm-hmm.
So, as long as she's sitting over 9 wounds, I think, or I should say 9 or more wounds, which she should be throughout most of the game. Because her first bracket's down at 9, so yeah, you need 10 or more.
You need 10 or more.
But generally, if you're playing her right and utilizing your terrain correctly, you should be able to keep her above 10 at most, or above 9 at most times. So you shouldn't run into too many of those problems. And if you do, it's not like it's the end of the world. Again, she's only 195 points, so if you do lose her, it's not the end of the world either. But that's what's so nice about Sisters, is everything is so cheap in the army.
So
when you lose something, you got all this extra stuff that's in your army that still can pull the weight.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like a huge loss if she's gone. I mean, ideally you'd like to keep her on the board the whole game, but
yep.
I mean, that is what it is.
So what I like about her is she's very durable with all those wounds. She buffs your army in multiple different ways. She's fighty enough that you could probably go toe to toe with some of the more fighty, like a Smash Captain or something out there.
Oh, easily.
It's not going to go well for that
A
character.
Smash Captain in general will never kill her.
No.
Even a Blood Angels one without get either A, getting lucky, or B, maybe being able to fight twice. And I don't think most Smash Captains can do that anymore.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm pretty sure she's going to survive. And even if she doesn't outright kill one, she's probably going to hurt them pretty bad. And in most cases, she will win that fight. Which, can you think of another 200-point model?
Back and go
Or less than 200-point model with 18 wounds as a character? I can't think of any, honestly.
There's so many wounds for 18 points.
18 wounds for, granted, it's only toughness 3, but with a 4
that's
up
like
and minus
10
1
points
hit.
per wound.
Yeah, and with so she's got a 3 up base, can get 2 up in cover, because she is infantry, so she can gain cover.
Yep.
And then in addition to that, she's got a 4 up invuln and the minus 1 to hit. So, yeah, 18 wounds with a minus 1 to hit, 4 up invuln, she can be really hard to kill.
Yep.
Even if you put a lot into her. Granted, you're going to be wounding her every time you hit her, but whatever.
So
she's going to survive most of it in most cases.
So I do really like her. I think she's a great addition, and she's not order locked, so she's a great addition to almost any Sisters force. She's a great centerpiece. I think the only real bad sides I want to say about her is, yes, she's got 18 wounds, but she's still toughness 3, and she doesn't get the lookout serve rule. Yeah. So everything on the opponent's side of the table can...
If they can see her,
they can see her, they're going to shoot at her. And at toughness 3, those wounds are going to be numerous.
Eventually, you'll start failing saves. When you're rolling 50 dice, you're going to start failing pretty quick.
She's going to take a lot of punishment very quickly, and that's the other part is she does degrade. So when you start dropping relics, you have to start pulling teeth and deciding what relics you want. And that's a lot of bookkeeping that slows the game down, and you might take a ability off that might have otherwise been useful later.
Right.
And then you're like, oh god,
I think
just taking something.
And I think too, when you look at like these relics as well, that's really the reason she's there. She's got the fighting stuff, which is kind of neat. It's all great and whatever, if she does get the opportunity to fight. But her entire job is designed to be the army's centerpiece, the
linchpin in your army.
She protects all the other sisters. She takes care of them, buffs them up, gives them all the auras and stuff like that. And if you lose her, or even if she does bracket, once you start bracketing on losing those relics, a lot of the reason that she's on the board is gone.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. But with that said, like I said, she's not even 200 points, so it's not the end of the world if she's gone. Even if she's bracketed, it's not like you're wasting 200 points. You can always, still claim objectives and stuff like that. And she's unique. I think actually, if you look at all the sisters' characters, even the main ones, like the only exception is Junith, and they're all infantry, so they can still do stuff like deploy scramblers. They can do stuff like engage on all fronts.
She is a character, so I don't think deploy scramblers.
Yeah, you're right.
But like behind enemy lines and what was it? But she is an infantry, so she can definitely benefit from like cover and stuff like that.
Yeah. She
can go through breachable terrain and, like we said, scale up and down.
Yeah.
So you can definitely try and help protect her a lot more too.
I guess I would have to look through all the secondaries, but I still think there are some secondaries that she could do that a lot of other characters can't because she's infantry. But I'd have to look through that. But yeah, you're right. In terms of what she gets, even if she doesn't get all the perks, she gets most of them. And she is such a great linchpin for the army. And the thing is, when you compare her to other characters like Celestine, you're wrong. I love Celestine, but for 195 points versus 170, I'm willing to pay that 25-point difference every single time to take a Triumph because it just does that much more for the army. I mean, five extra relics and 18 wounds.
Yeah.
That's a lot of stuff you can do with a single model to make it useful in a game. So.
But like to go over the relics real quick, she has like +1 to hit. She can she adds to psychic denial.
+1 to melee. For all sororitas.
Yep. Once per phase, you can use active phase ability again, even if you already used it. You can modify miracle dice up and down. That's a really good one. She and then.
Now keep in mind you have to stay within 6 inches or for most of this stuff.
Yeah.
But she can modify the dice rolls, which is huge for your acts of faith. I mean that's phenomenal for like look at any of your melta weapons and stuff like that. Being able to modify that extra wound or whatever the case is every single time, make sure you're hitting. Even like that makes even your low miracle dice good.
Yep. And then and then one of the relics just simply generates another miracle dice in addition at the start of your turn.
Yep.
She has the ability of the Fiery Heart, so again, within 6 inches, any Adepta Sororitas units automatically pass their morale tests.
Yeah.
Which, like we've gone in the previous video, sisters don't really have a lot of problem with morale.
They don't run into leadership.
So this is nice.
Yeah, they don't run into leadership too often.
Useless.
Interestingly enough, I think in that game that we played recently with Sisters versus Carcharodons, we did have an instance where we were looking at models, in terms of taking leadership tests. I did take and fail leadership tests, and then we remembered, oh yeah, well, they're within 6 inches. They don't need to take leadership because they're out of pass.
Yep. That's a good point to bring up is if you roll a 1 in a leadership test, you do generate another miracle dice.
That's right.
I don't think that'll happen because you automatically pass when you're within 6 of her, so that might be a negative almost.
Anytime you auto pass, you can still roll for it, even though you automatically pass for it. So like that stratagem, that says you auto pass too. Anytime anytime you lose models, you should be taking leadership tests, because even if you automatically pass leadership test, the auto pass isn't relevant to whether or not the dice roll says something. You still, theoretically, if you're playing by the game rules, you're still going to roll the die, even though you automatically pass for it.
Okay.
So yeah, it allows sisters to generate more miracle dice that they otherwise wouldn't be able to, and that's what's so unique about it. But in terms of like what she does, though, I mean, this basically means that if for some reason, in the off chance that you would fail leadership, like say if we're playing against Night Lord or something, I get -4, -6 to my leadership.
Yeah.
I don't care about that. Goodbye.
Yep.
She just, as long as you're within 6 inches over.
In that situation, it's very powerful, definitely. I remember playing 8th edition with Necrons, and they had a 6-inch or a warlord trait of just, I ignore morale, and it was really strong.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, sometimes it never really comes up in games, but when it does
in games,
it's
big.
You're glad to have it.
You're glad to have it.
Yeah.
But I think kind of closing out, she's a huge force multiplier. She's very deadly in combat. She doesn't really shoot. She has like 6 pistols, which that's actually what I was going to go into. Yeah. Is she has 6 pistols, but she also has frag grenades.
Yeah.
So it's like, why would you ever use the frag grenades? I can just shoot my 6 pistols and actually have more firepower.
The only time I think a grenade would be useful is if for some reason.
Like she has crack grenades, and that's D3, so I can use those. But the frag grenade is just simply weaker than 6 pistols.
I mean, you never would use a frag grenades, and frankly, I think it's just because of the fact that when you get frag grenade or crack grenades, you do get frag grenades to go along with it. So it's just kind of like one of those things where
well, not out is
we're gonna throw them in. There's a few models out there.
Guardsmen have frag grenades, but not crack.
Yeah, there's a few models out there where they're different. But
it's just a funny little thing.
It is kind of humorous.
They have frag grenades, but they're never going to use them.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so let's see here. That kind of covers her. I think the only other thing that I would mention here, that relic that gives the adding 1 to the result for roll for psychers to do the mortal wounds. I think it's kind of cute. 5+ being able to roll for D3 mortal wounds against any army, and then chaos you get 4+, which is pretty cool. So,
Yep.
well, we happen to play Chaos a lot here in the studio, so that 4+ comes around quite a bit. But
She almost has this like smite ability.
yeah,
But
I mean it's only 6 inches, but
yeah,
it's still. I mean, if they're a psyker, you get +1. If they're chaos, then they
you
get
get
another +1.
+1.
So if it's like a sorcerer, chaos sorcerer,
a chaos
you're doing
sorcerer
a 3+.
on, is it 3?
Yeah, it's a
it'd be
5
3.
base, and then it's +1 plus another one. So yeah,
Yep.
it's kind of funny. It's one of those things that doesn't come up very often. But if
No.
somebody wants to start messing with
But
her,
it makes her more killy, more deadly to psychers and
Yeah.
chaos even too.
yep.
Yep.
So yeah, she's a cute character in terms of what she gets. I really like her a lot, and I love playing her.
Mhm.
One thing I would like to mention too about these two characters, they do not get the order trait, which allows them to play in any order, which is great.
Yes.
But could you imagine how nasty these characters would be if they could benefit from the order traits?
Yeah, like Bloody Rose or like
Yeah.
the what is it, the Sacred Heart or
Or
whatever.
the AP -2 equals
Yeah,
0. and-
Yep, yep.
I mean, they would be
18
unbelievably
wounds
deadly.
that
and
doesn't
hard
even
to
care about AP 1 and 2.
Yeah, just
Oh.
shrugs off everything with a 4+ invuln,
Yeah.
2+ base and cover. Yeah, I mean they would be vicious. Now, again, they're cheap units, so I get why they can't do that. And another thing too is she can't. The Triumph can't get inside vehicles.
No,
Makes
no.
sense.
As
She's
a rule,
huge.
can't get
She's
in.
way too big to fit in there. You can't. The casket doesn't quite fit in the back of the rhino. So, yeah.
Well, they want it out in the open so everyone can see her.
Yeah, you'd think they just
You
mount
need
it on
to see
top
the
of the
corpse.
rhino.
You know.
Well, a little cherubim's flying
The
around.
corpse,
You
like-
can just pick it up and put it on top of the rhino and call it. Kind of just
Right.
strap it to the top like you would, whenever you're hauling a new couch or something. So.
All right, but moving on, we got
Judith
Judith. Yep, and she is order locked
So-
into the Order of the Martyred Lady.
So before
which,
we get too much into the data sheet here, like how exactly do you pronounce her name? Is it Junith Eruida? Eruisha? Eruida?
Eruita.
If I had to guess, I would say Junith Eruida.
It sounds French, so they
Yeah.
probably pronounce it differently.
Yeah. So can we just call her?
Judith,
Just call her Jane or June or
June. Just call her June.
June. Call her Joan of Arc.
Joan of Arc.
That's
Yeah.
more Celestine.
Yeah.
Whatever. So yeah, okay. Yeah, she is the.
So I really like her. Like
She's
if
the
you're
one
playing
other
Martyred
character.
Lady, I'd say you are auto including her. She is that good.
She's vicious. And what's more, she's a vehicle, which is
Yeah.
really awkward but awesome at the same time.
So you don't benefit from like cover, but
No.
because you're a vehicle, you can actually use your guns in close combat. And speaking
Yeah.
of guns, she has 2 heavy flamers.
Yeah, so she's an
So that's
immolator.
2d6 auto hits in close combat.
She's an immolator, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cute. It's quite
Mhm.
good for a model this small.
Yep.
Honestly, I
So she's
thought-
just this little small like floating paladin.
Initially, I
paladin
thought it
girl.
was actually really big, but when I actually saw the model in person, I'm like, wow, that's kind of small.
Yeah.
Smaller than I thought it would be. But
It's just kind of rivals, like a little smaller than a pen.
yeah. But I mean, like those big eagles on the front, it's a gorgeous sculpt. I mean,
Oh, it
it's a
is,
big
yeah.
ass pulpit. She looks really pretty. It's the only thing I have against her is her head. I can't stand that haircut. It's just like super.
little like
It's
like
like a
Catholic boy
crop
haircut.
top. Yeah, a little
A
crop
little
top.
bowl cut.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah. But beyond that, you can always throw a different head on her or put a helmet on her.
You
so
could, yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't feel bad about having the model just because I know I'd swap the head out.
Mhm.
But beyond that, I mean, everything about that model looks gorgeous. The steps leading up to there, it is just really flashy. And her move's 10, which is cool. So she moves like a normal vehicle.
Yeah. So
she's
she has
got the weapon
fly.
skill 2, ballistic 2. So
Yep.
she's fitting the Canoness mold already. She's T4, which is actually the only other
Yeah.
sister in the army that's T4.
Yeah, that's actually huge for this book. A T4 character. Well,
Yeah.
but sister.
Well, the only other one is what's her face, the Psyker girl, the new one they added.
Yes. Yeah.
Not
Yep.
Kyganil
That's the only one.
and for the love of me, I can't remember what her name was.
But other than that, she's got weapon skill 2, ballistic skill 2, strength 3. She's got 4 attacks. She's actually got 7 wounds, so she has 1 more than Celestine. I mean, she doesn't come back to life.
Right.
But leadership 9s, save 3, and she's got 4 up invuln. So she really is a canoness across the board. But she's also on this vehicle. and she's got the Mace of Castigation.
Stern, that's neat.
So she'll go up to Strength 5, AP 1, flat damage 2 with more attacks.
Yeah.
So she can definitely defend herself in close combat.
Yeah, she's no slouch.
And like I said,
in
she also
combat.
gets to shoot her flamers.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, the flamers are the most vicious thing about her.
Yep.
And then she's got the Martyred Lady benefits too on here, like all her different cool stuff. She gets the Shield of Faith, boosts to +1. Now, it's interesting to note too that all Adepta Sororitas infantry models receive the Shield of Faith bonus, so she actually does the Celestine buff.
Yep.
As well, and it's for any infantry. It's not order locked, even though she is Martyred Lady. So that is actually quite interesting, even if you don't like taking Martyred Lady. So you could like take a detachment separate, run it as a Martyred Lady detachment, then run the whole rest of your armies, whatever you want.
You definitely could.
And they're still going to benefit from that +1 regardless, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
The reroll hits and wounds of 1 for Martyred Lady units is insanely strong because she's a captain.
She's a captain and a lieutenant.
Rolled in
one.
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to say is she's in Order of the Martyred Lady, and when you lose a model in Order of the Martyred Lady, so like you have 10 sisters and you lose one, you go to 9.
Yeah.
The rest of them get +1 to hit. So they now are hitting on 2s with their ballistic skill and rerolling 1s standing next to her.
That's right. Yeah.
With your basic sisters.
Yeah.
They're going to be hitting all their shots.
Well, it makes them like super offensive in shooting, and it's even melee it still works too, but especially in shooting because Martyred Lady does better at shooting than they do in melee. So it can turn that shooting, it can bring it up and even further, another notch. And actually, it's funny because she actually fills the role of the lieutenant captain.
Yep.
There is nothing else in the army that gives that reroll wounds of 1 except for stratagems.
Yeah, I don't think anything else rerolls 1s.
With the exception of
her. Yep.
And again, we'll get into her later, but the Palatine being an addition to the army is just huge. But Junith was the only one that did that before.
Yep. So
it's really interesting to look at her and be like, okay, well, she's a captain and a lieutenant. She's a vehicle with 2 heavy flamers. It's kind of like rolling an immolator, basically, like an immolator with the captain and lieutenant rules.
Yeah, she's not too expensive. I want to say she's like 135 points, so she's up there.
Yeah.
But when you're rolling a canoness with your lieutenant ability in there, and she's also like a vehicle, and like you said, an immolator in there, kind of wrapped into 1.
Right.
And she's 7 wounds, so she still gets lookout, sir.
Yeah.
So you can't just target her right away.
Yeah.
She's very good. I think the only thing I don't like about her is she does have explode, but it's 3 inches for 1 mortal wound, and it's on a 6.
Well, and
her vehicle exploded.
She's a character too, though, so she can benefit from the character role. And I think that is what makes her so good is the fact that you can treat her just like a character, without the fact. I mean, the fact that she's a vehicle can be annoying, but most of the time they're not going to be able to target her anyway. Just like a character dreadnought, you just can't touch them. So it's really neat for her to be a canoness and Celestine wrapped into 1 bubble, and still be able to fire those cool range weapons. And because she's 8th edition as well, the old codex, she still benefits from herself.
Yep.
Because it's not infantry, it's ordered of our Lady units.
Yep.
So she can do her own buffs. She can buff any of the Martyred Lady units, and it's not just infantry, which
just
is
an exorcist that rerolls 1s to hit and wound. That's so good. That's so good.
I really like her a lot. I wish, and I mean, I'm just saying this because of the fact that I don't play Martyred Lady much, but I wish she was a Martyred Lady so I could use her in the rest of my army. With that said,
so good.
She makes Martyred Lady that much better, and I think that gives you an argument for playing Martyred Lady over some of the other ones.
Absolutely.
So,
I believe I covered that in our first video, is that Martyred Lady didn't feel the strongest because you have to die in order to get an effect.
Yeah.
But stuff like this character really kind of makes you be like, you know?
Well, I think the thing is that when you go back and look at like the other traits, like was it Ebon Chalice? That's the one that gives AP2 = 0?
No, that
I don't remember which one it was.
No, the Valiant Heart.
Oh yeah, so Valorous Heart gives AP2 -1. So yeah, with that being as powerful as it is by itself, it's almost like an auto lock for most players. In addition to Bloody Rose being the other option, because you get the defense for one, you get the offense for the other. Both are very good. But when you start throwing in little things like this, it starts,
Yeah.
characters and stuff that are unique to a different order. It starts making you think like, okay, well, maybe I don't need all that extra, melee for my whole army, or I don't need all that extra, durability for my army. When I got characters like this that
Yep.
literally put out, all these buffs and give you so much hurt to your army, it makes it really interesting. I think it allows you to, and GW I think did a really good job with this, allows you to kind of start picking things that you otherwise wouldn't normally. And that's one of the biggest problems I've had with Warhammer since I started playing, was that like, you look at Marine chapters and stuff like that, if I want to play my Black Templars, but they're not as good as like Ultramarines, it
Yep.
feels bad,
It feels
it's
bad
like, well,
playing a
if their rules
subpar-
were similar, why do they get better stuff when they're playing the exact
Legion.
same models, they're just a different color for me?
Yep.
Now, Successors kind of helps that a little bit, but GW has been getting away from a lot of that. Well, this chapter does this so much better that you're never going to touch the other ones. Well, now the orders have kind of balanced out where you can at least take 3 of the 6 that you get and be fine with them because they're good enough
Yep.
that you don't necessarily feel locked into 1 or 2.
Oh yeah, 3 definitely feels like a pretty good variety.
Yeah, I mean it's split up enough to where I think when you see the 9th edition codex, I think you're going to see even more of that.
Yep.
Because they've been doing such a good job with their codexes since 9th edition came out.
Especially if we get to see like custom orders.
Yeah.
Like if you can customize your own order,
Yeah.
that'd be really interesting.
Well, being able to like I said, with like Drakari and Necrons, you don't feel locked in any particular chapter or sept or order or whatever. You're not locked into those because all of them are pretty good, and the codexes by themselves, without all that special stuff, is actually really good. And then when you add that extra stuff in, it just makes your army more flavorful, or makes you, allows your army to do something you otherwise wouldn't be able to do, which is kind of nice. So you don't have to feel like you're playing or painting an army just for a specific rule set, which is cool. So I really like that, and I really like the direction GW's going with that in terms of making sure that everything's balanced for everyone. Now we got a question here. It looks like your woman here. She says, are we talking about F-Rail? Yes, F-Rail Stern is the other toughness 4 infantry model for Sisters of Battle. She's the only other character that's T4 in the entire army. And technically, she is an Adepta Sororitas. She does have a keyword, but she's kind of an add-on to Sororitas. She's not by herself, you know what I mean? And she has to take Kaiganel, so it's like, yeah, whatever.
Yep.
But she's a whole other basket.
Yep.
So,
But I think closing out, June is really good. I'd argue almost an auto-include, but she is locked into Order of the Martyred Lady, so she's going to feel very awkward in other lists.
right. Yeah, she's a very good character. I would take her 100 out of 100 times if it wasn't for the fact that she was Martyred Lady.
Yeah.
And for that reason alone is why I don't have one.
Yeah.
Not saying we won't get one for the studio and start running her that way too, but it's just, I've never felt like I necessarily needed to invest in it, other than the fact that I love the sculpt. The sculpt is gorgeous. So.
Yeah, it's a beautiful sculpt.
But that covers her. The last HQ we're going to talk about here is the Missionary.
Yep, the only other non-named HQ.
She's the only other HQ other than Palatine.
Other than the
Palatine.
Now the Missionary, I don't know how much we're going to talk about him because, unfortunately, I personally feel he's largely useless compared to a character you get in your elite slot, which is coming up, the Preacher.
Well,
The only advantage, because they're almost the exact same model, the only advantage is he gets Word of the Emperor. So you roll 1d6 when an Adeptus Ministorum model flees while within 6 inches of this model, and a 4 they don't flee.
Yeah.
Now, like we said, morale generally isn't a huge problem for Sisters, and it's still only a 4+.
Yeah.
So it's a coin flip whether they're going to run.
Yeah.
It doesn't justify taking this character.
Yeah.
Now, if the Preacher wasn't a thing, Missionary would have a place.
Yeah.
But
here's the thing. This is the way I look at this character. Right. This character is not designed for this codex. It's great. Don't get me wrong. That +1 attack. The Warhams is the only reason you run this character.
Yeah.
But you can take the Preacher, and again, we'll get into that later.
Yep.
But it comes with 4-up Invulnse, which is kind of neat. It's got the Zealot rule, which is whatever. I mean, they all get it. Anything that's Ministorum, I think Ministorum in general gets it for the most part. A lot of the like melee type characters and stuff do as well. But yeah, it's definitely designed. The Word of the Emperor is kind of unique because of the fact that you're not locked to Sororitas. And granted, Sororitas do get the Adeptus Ministorum keyword as well. With that said, there's a lot of Ministorum units out there that do flee from morale. You go back and look at, well, let's see, there's the, what do they call it?
Yeah, like the Flagellants.
Yeah,
pretty
Flagellants,
low.
the Assassins, I think there's a Crusaders as well.
Yep.
So they can all run from combat pretty easily, but the thing is they're not usually like the keystone to taking your army.
No.
They're not a centerpiece, they're not a unit that you're going to run every time, they're just kind of like
they're the auxiliary units.
they're kind of, they're nice to have on the board, but how much are they really going to perform?
Mm-hmm.
And is it really worth taking a missionary to keep them up?
Yeah.
Probably not. So I think it's a good character. Because of the fact that the preacher exists in this book is the whole reason why you don't need the missionary.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was really the thing.
If I didn't have the preacher and I was running Bloody Rose, I would make room for the missionary. But because of the fact that I don't need to take him, I can just take an elite version of him. Essentially, I'm getting the same benefit with extra slots.
Especially when you consider that like you already have the Canonist.
Yeah.
Because like the missionary is not fighty. He's got weapon skill 4, 3 attacks. I think the best he can get is like a chainsword. So you could give him the chainsword of many slayings.
No,
but
it has
then
to be Bloody Rose.
Oh, is that Bloody Rose?
It has to be Bloody Rose. Yeah.
Oh, it has to be.
So
Yeah, because he doesn't even have order, so you can't even give it to him.
That's right. Well, he's not a Sororitas at all. So
No, he's not Sororitas at all. So I think he's locked out of some relics.
I think
honestly, just skip right over him.
Yeah, I don't think there's any real reason why you'd want to take him when you have the option to take the preacher. And I think you get the preacher for free in terms of like the slots. We'll go over that. I'm pretty sure he has.
No, the preacher has the icon of the. There's a rule in here. You can only take those auxiliary units, like we talked about, the Crusaders, the Death Cult Assassins, and the Flagellants. You can only have one of them in your detachment for every priest in there.
Yeah, they're limited.
So preacher and missionary are the only priests in your book.
That's right.
So you have to take those in order to take those auxiliary units.
Yeah.
But again, the preacher is a priest as well, so you don't need a missionary.
Well, it's just, like I said, it's a missionary light for less points, and essentially plays the same role that the missionary would throughout the game. You get the buff from the preacher, so you're gonna take the preacher because it's just a cheaper version.
Yep.
So yeah. So okay, we're gonna get out of characters here because I think that was the last one on the list. We're going into the main basic Plain Jane Battle Sisters.
The Plain Jane Battle Sisters. So this is your only troop choice. You are going to take these.
Well, yeah.
Like, 1, because you don't have any other choices, and 2, because they're good.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. Why would you want to take anything but them for your troops?
You don't need to.
They are phenomenal.
They are.
They're ridiculously good.
They
what is it? Minimum 5, up to 15 models per unit.
Yeah, you can take they can take them a big horde of like 15, which is actually a surprise to me.
Yeah.
They have near Space Marine stats. So they're only toughness 3, strength 3, and weapon skill 4. Other than that, they're a Space Marine across the board.
So yeah, in terms of what they get, they're basically a Space Marine with -1 to all of their stats, with the exception of the ballistic skill and the save.
Yeah.
They have the same ballistic skill, the same save as a Space Marine. Otherwise, their stats are just 1 under for everything. And I think even the leadership's the same.
I think actually you probably want to compare them to like Space Marines. Scouts.
Well, Scouts get a 4-up save.
Scouts get a 4-up save.
They don't get power.
Yeah.
So
they don't get power.
Yeah.
Sisters do.
These girls literally are Space Marines with -1 to their stats for strength, toughness,
and they're cheap enough. They're 11-point models.
Yeah.
So you can field a pretty sizable force of them. Yeah. You can field 50 of them, or 50
per squad.
Yeah, you can field 50 of them,
well,
and that'd be like.
You can do. You can fit a lot of systems.
That'd be like 550 points for 50 of them.
I mean, they're cheap.
Yeah, they're cheap.
That's all that needs to be said about them. They're dirt cheap for what you get. The fact that you get like 9-point power armor, or what is it?
11 points.
11 points. Okay. 11-point power armor. With the potential to get a 4-up invuln. Probably will have a 4-up invuln throughout the game.
Because they have a 6-up flat from their Shield of Faith.
Get a 6-up.
And then you have your characters who can potentially increase that even more. And then, like we said, you can take the Valiant Heart, so they have 3 up saves.
Right.
Their infantry sitting in cover, and they'll ignore like AP 1 and 2 next to a Magifier.
Right.
And then when you do get hit by an AP 3, it's like, oh, well, I have a 4 pinball.
Right.
Oh, I failed that. Congratulations, you killed an 11-point model.
Yeah.
They're just so good.
It's a joke that an 11-point model can sit and cover all game, never have to worry about dying, with the exception of something that's AP 3 or higher.
Yep.
And even then, still doesn't even have it has exactly a 50% chance to live every time, which is insane.
So with that being said, they are incredibly durable. They're cheap enough to be spammed. Your opponents are going to be frustrated trying to dig them out of anything, objectives, buildings, and that stuff.
Yeah, their bodies.
But when it comes to offense, is where they tend to lack a little.
Yeah,
So especially in combat, they're only weapon skill 4 with 1 attack at strength 3. They can really get bogged down in close combat and do very little.
Well, and they rely on the order and the sacred right traits more than any, and aura buffs more than any other unit in the army. But the fact is they can benefit from everything in the army. No matter what you get for an order, they're probably going to get it.
Yes.
As long as you're within range of them. Now, they did make them a little trickier to use because in previous editions, the Beta Codex and prior to that, you were able to run 3 Stormbolters in a squad.
Yep.
So you could just stack Stormbolters and then have bolters on bolters on bolters on bolters. Which gives you a ton of shots for the point cost, and it's totally worth it every time.
Yep.
With that said, now you can no longer take the 3rd Stormbolter, you can take 2 Stormbolters.
2 Stormbolters.
And now the Superior can no longer take her Stormbolter, it's been legended. So that is unfortunate. With that said, I mean, they were already so good with 3 Stormbolters that I think the loss of 1 isn't the end of the world, because she can still take a bolter. It's just she loses 1 to 2 extra shots, which isn't a big deal.
Yep.
And she can take a combi instead. If you want a combi plasma, combi melta, or combi inferno, combi whatever, you can take. You still have the option to take whatever you want in your superior to gear them up. And what's nice is they get a chainsword for free. For free, they don't pay a point for it.
So yeah, your sister superior will have 3 attacks in close combat, but again, strength 3.
Yeah. Well, they can switch out the chainsword too if they want.
Yeah, you can get a power up, and that's what I was going to get into. Is they are pretty customizable. You can have
2 units in the army. You can take a special weapon or a heavy weapon, or you can take 2 special weapons, 1 in the heavy weapon slot.
Yep. So they can get some heavy weapons, and sisters have the upgraded heavy bolter, don't they?
They have the new heavy bolter.
They have the new heavy bolter, so you can supplement their kind of weaker firepower because they just have the AP0 bolt guns. You can try and supplement that a little with some weapons, like they can get flamers, they can get multi-meltas, heavy bolters. You can try and beef up them a little. Yep. But ultimately, what they are best at is just holding that ground.
That's
just
exactly
sitting on objectives and holding it.
Yeah, they're for 11 points per model. The premier reason to take them is their durability and their objective secured rules.
Yep.
The fact that you can start kitting these out to be kind of unique and take extra stuff just adds to what you get for the army. And honestly, it doesn't cost you that much to take any of this extra stuff. And then when you start throwing in all the order traits, the auras, the sacred rites, they can get really, really strong for nothing at all, for not even a single extra point.
No, not really.
It's pretty crazy just how good they can be for what they get.
Yep, and they're pretty versatile. Like you can have a big group of 15 sitting on objective, while another group is in a repressor, and they just they get out with a couple heavy flamers. Can they take 2 heavy weapons?
No, they can take 1 heavy weapon and they can take a special weapon.
Okay.
But they can supplement the heavy weapon for another special weapon,
yep.
Which allows them to take,
you can have this more specialized group that, maybe give them multi-melta and hunt tanks with them.
That's right, and they do have the new multi-melta, they do have the new heavy bolter, so they are benefiting from the multi-damage, the bonuses to the new melta changes and all that, so yeah, they get the best of everything when it comes to that kind of stuff. And you have the option to take the Simulacrum Imperialis, which now gives them an active faith, even if you've already performed an active faith in that phase. And in addition, you can take an Ascended Cherub for another, I think, 5 points. And now you get a dice roll that's exclusively usable for only them. Which is not even part of the rest of your dice. You don't even have to use any other miracle dice.
I mean, because you got command rerolls, you got miracle dice, and then you got the cherub.
Yeah. So now if you're only adding, that's probably what's so good about the fact that you still get like a heavy weapon in the squad, is that heavy weapon you're probably going to want to use your miracle dice on. And rather than using your pile of miracle dice you want to save for other things, you get that Incenser Cherub for 5 extra points, And now you're able to utilize that one die roll,
Yep.
say if it's a 5 or 6 or whatever. And again, you know, if you have the Triumph nearby, you can make it go up or down 1, which is
Yeah.
also great. And now you're utilizing that, like that extra melter you want the extra damage on, or whatever the case is. That extra die will allow you to get, and you roll 2 actually, and you get to pick which one you want to keep. So it's not like you just roll 1 and you roll 1 and that's it. You're stuck with a 1 for your multi-melter. That
Yep.
sucks. But now you get to roll 2 instead, and
Yeah,
you're taking the higher of the 2 most cases. And now
Most
that
cases.
multi-melter is benefiting from like a 4 or 5 or 6 for damage, which is great. And that doesn't even touch your regular Miracle Dice pile, which
Nope.
actually funny enough about that is if you have the Triumph, now you can actually use another Miracle Die on that same squad. So both
Yep,
multi-melter
because
shots
the relic
can
allows
be
you to use it
utilized.
again.
Yeah. So you can turn one multi-melter Miracle Dice into 2 essentially. Now you're doing like a guaranteed flat 12 damage if you roll well.
Yeah.
It's pretty ridiculous when you look at it,
Mhm.
considering how cheap this unit is. And I mean, it comes down to whether you want to pay the extra 10 points for the Simulacrum, the extra 5 points for the Cherub.
Yeah.
But even without all that, you
All those
still
little
have your
gear and
Miracle
stuff.
Dice pile, you still have all your character auras, you still have, you know, if you're Bloody Rose, they're still good in combat. You know, they get different things they can be buffed up by. It's,
Yep.
you know, for what you're paying for, you're getting quite a deal.
Yep.
And they're kind of masters of none, but like they're good at everything.
Mhm.
So I
Well,
think,
like I said, they're very versatile.
yeah. So you're never running into a problem where, you know, they get into a corner and they can't fight their way out of it. They can't shoot their way out of it. They can do whatever they need to do to keep your army going. So
But yeah, I think the only situation where you're going to be really disappointed with them is if you're trying to kill stuff in close combat with them.
Yeah.
Because that weapon skill 4, 1 attack. No, you can take like the Bloody Rose, and then you get an extra attack, and then like your pistols
AP
are
minus
AP1.
one.
AP1.
well, melee weapons too.
Yep.
So you're, you know, even your basic, you know, punch
They
is
do
going
have
to be.
bolt pistols, so they can shoot in close combat.
So yeah, with Bloody Rose, your basic punch is going to be 2 attacks, AP minus 1. You throw the Magnifier in there with Tail of the Warrior, and now they're getting Strength 4. So Strength 4 AP minus. They're hitting
Yeah.
better than Marines in most cases. With the same number of attacks.
Firstborn Marines, I think.
Well, right.
Yeah.
But Firstborn Marines, what, 18 points now compared to your 11-point sister?
No, they will be once they go to 2 wounds. I think they're
Basic Marines are 2 wounds
15
now.
to 16.
No, Basic Marines are 2 wounds now.
Oh no, they are.
The Chaos Marines haven't.
The
got
Chaos
it.
Marines haven't got
Regular Space Marines are now 2 wounds apiece, except for the Scouts. They're the only
Yeah.
exception.
Yeah.
The only thing you're really losing here is the weapon skill. You're always hitting on a 4-up instead of a 3-up, which is a problem.
Yep.
But you know, if you have the Triumphs nearby, now you're hitting on 3s. So
Mhm.
it's not the end of the world
Yeah, 3s.
having a stat line like this, because there are ways you can modify it to make it better.
Yep.
And in the end, I think sister squads can be just as deadly as even basic Marine squads. And I think people not too long ago were complaining about just how ridiculous Marines can be when they're rocking into combat. They got 5 attacks apiece, strength 4, AP minus 1 with their doctrines, and they're doing all sorts of crazy stuff and wiping out squads that are melee-based units when they're not even geared for melee.
Yep.
Now, sisters essentially do the same thing. They're just not quite as powerful at doing it. But that's fine because of the fact that they're also 7 points cheaper per model.
Yeah.
I mean, you're basically
You-
getting almost 2 sisters
Well,
per Marine.
Was an intercessor like 20 points? I think you're
Yeah.
getting practically 2 sisters for every
Yeah.
1 intercessor.
Well, that's assuming you're not paying extra points for other things on the intercessors as well. 'Cause if I recall correctly, aren't the stalkers a little more expensive?
They're like 1 or 2 points, I want to say.
Yeah, so now they're 21 points. Basically, you're getting 2 sisters essentially per Primaris Marine, per Intercessor Marine.
Yeah.
And then, funny enough, you compare these to like Reavers, and these chicks outperform Reavers all day, every day, even when they're not kitted out, which is hilarious.
Well, now we're talking about Space Marines.
Well,
I think
no, I think it's-
Reavers,
I think
they
it's
come
funny.
in a little low.
I think it's really funny because like your cheap models should never outperform models that
Yeah,
are more
these are your
expensive than
basic
them.
troops.
And these sisters can do more damage than most other troops in the game.
Yeah, I mean, these are your Necron warriors. These are your
Yeah.
guardsmen. These are
Yeah.
your interior gaunts. Like,
Yeah, and you know, their customization isn't like, it's not super diverse, but it's enough to where they
It's
can
enough.
still get what they need out of it.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of what you get for sisters, you could be okay running the characters that you need, running nothing but Battle Sister squads, and still performing fine in the game.
I would honestly say you could probably just run an entire army of nothing but Battle Sisters and do fine.
I think it's insane that we can agree on that because of the fact that I can't think of any other army in the game where you could just run nothing
Nothing but
but
troops.
3 characters or 2 characters and all playing one type of troop. That's it.
Maybe Necron warriors, but you're gonna struggle against vehicles.
Well, there used to be like the Typhus army where you take the poxwalkers and all that, but they nerfed it to where you can't even run like that.
Well, and that was more of like objectives, just
Yeah.
because you couldn't kill them all.
All right. Now, and these girls, I mean, they perform offensively, defensively. They have everything you need throughout a game. And I think it's pretty crazy that you can sit back and say, oh, these toughest 3 models with a, leadership of 7, stat line of 3 all the way across the board somehow still manages to outperform most of the units in the game.
Yep.
And I think that comes down, it epitomizes why sisters are as good as they are.
Yep.
Now, of course, again, it comes down to all the stuff that they get in addition to that. But, that's just icing on the cake, I think.
Yep.
So, but anyway, so that covers sisters, unless there's something else you want to go over.
No, just battle sisters. You're gonna run them. They're good. They're your base troops. You don't need another troop option.
Yeah.
You really don't.
Yeah, and if you're running a sisters army, I would say if anybody comes up and says, well, what should I get next for my sisters army?
More sisters.
You could make an argument where more sisters is always the answer, every time.
Yep.
Because you can never go wrong with them, because they're just that good. So, yeah, definitely agreement there. Preachers.
Yep, moving to
What
the
are the
preachers.
elites?
So now we're into elites. The preacher, like we said, he makes the missionary obsolete. He does everything that the missionary does. He has the exact same stat line. Web skill 6, ballistic skill 6, strength 3, toughness 3, 4 wounds, 3 attacks, 6 up armor save.
Yeah.
These are just pro priests running around in their robes. They're not really meant to be like smash captains or anything.
Yeah.
With that being said, he does have Zealot, so he can reroll his hits. He's only got 3 attacks.
Runs in and he takes his
and
chainsaw.
a chainsword and a last pistol.
Yeah.
So he's not really going to be killing anything himself
Probably
outside of like a guardsman or 2.
Well, it's funny because he gets, 5 attacks on the charge?
Well, yeah, because
Reroll
the
hits?
war hymn.
Yeah.
Because the war hymn is why you're taking him. Add 1 to the attacks of Ministorum infantry and Astra Militarum infantry
Yeah.
in range, actually.
Right.
So your stuff like your Repentia, you're going to get more attacks. Even just like your battle sisters, like you said, will get more attacks
Yep.
to help
Well, I think
them out.
you're going to see these benefit Repentia, and you're going to see them benefit the Arcoflagellants.
Yep.
Flagellants, whatever.
The
You're going to see them
flagellants.
benefit those 2 units probably more than anything else in this book. With that said, I mean, +1 attack for any unit is always great, and I think they're only like 35 points, 45 points, something like that.
The preacher, the preacher's real cheap. I want to say almost like 25, 30 points.
I have one in my
They are
list.
super cheap.
35 points, yeah.
35?
35
Okay.
points.
Okay.
But still, I mean, it's super cheap for a
Yeah,
character.
I
that
want
has
to say
+1 attacks.
I want to say the missionary was like 40 or 45 points.
Missionary
I know he's
is
more.
definitely more expensive.
He's definitely more.
45, so another 10 points, yeah.
Yeah, another 10 points for practically nothing.
Nothing you're ever going to utilize.
no, you're really going to utilize.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to.
So he does have Resorius for a 4-up invuln.
Yep.
So
35-point
it'll
character
protect-
with 5 attacks in the charge,
with
having
a 30
+1
a
attack
4-up
roll,
invuln.
with a 4 pinfall and 4 wounds.
Yeah. So it's a
That's
bargain.
Kind of crazy, actually.
Yeah, it's a bargain, but when he does get into trouble, he's not going to last very long.
Probably not.
He has Icon of the Ecclesiarchy, so while he's within 6 inches of a Chaos unit, you subtract 1 for the leadership.
Yeah.
That might come up. Otherwise, it's a little icing on the cake.
Yeah, it's whatever. It's cool to have it, but it's probably never going to come up in a game.
But like we said, he's an infantry character that you're going to take to get extra attacks on your melee units. Or, like I said, if you really need him for your battle sisters,
Yeah.
he's cheap enough, you could just
Yeah.
throw him in there.
Look,
Like
look,
35 points, hey, I'm getting more attacks.
Bloody Rose, spamming Repentia, I don't know why you wouldn't take this on them, with the fact that, other than the fact that Repentia already decimate everything they touch without the extra attacks anyway.
Yeah.
But with that said, it benefits them so much that it's usually worth running. So,
Yeah.
you want to jump into the Superior? I'm going to go take a quick break. I'll
Yep.
be right back.
So the Gemini Superior, those are the, pretty sure, yep, so those are the Gemini Superiors that come with Celestine, like we talked about earlier, basically going to take them. They have, they'll get a 4-up invuln when they're next to Celestine, because they already have a 6-up invuln from their Shield of Faith, and then she increases them by 2. Now they have Divine Guardians, so they can, if your army's Battleforged, they do not take an attachment slot in, when you include Celestine in the army. And they can't have any warlord traits or relics because they are characters.
Yeah.
And they have like the drone protocols for
It's
Tau.
the old bodyguard rule.
The old bodyguard rule
Yeah.
for Celestine, so they can take more wounds for her. With that being said, they only have 2 wounds per, so they're going to disappear pretty fast. I think.
Yeah. In my opinion, they're very tricky to use. The thing is, you know, back in like the beta edition and when the index was out, they actually had these girls all lumped into one squad together. So you can kind of pick and choose which ones are dying and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And Celestine was able to utilize her ability to bring them back and essentially keep that whole 3 trio alive indefinitely. Because you'd always leave one alive and then still get the next one back up and continuously keep getting her back up. And she would bodyguard for Celestine every time. So it was kind of insanely strong. And I, even as a Sisters player, I thought it was a little bit ridiculous. In addition to Celestine being able to get back up twice in the game, which is crazy as it is. But when you go back and look at like what they've done to them now, it's interesting because in the beta codex, when they split them apart, they made it so they did what they do now, but they weren't characters. So you could target them, and then they would just die.
Yeah.
And then they would never benefit Celestine at all. Well, they went and added the character rule on them. So now they're definitely infinitely better.
Yeah, they get
Because
like
without the character rule, they're just useless. They're probably going to die before they get an opportunity to do anything. But when you throw them in as characters, you can protect them. And when you start taking shots and you start utilizing the bodyguard rule, you can utilize the bodyguard rule and not straight up kill your missionary, or your superior. You could kill one and then have Celestine resurrect her back without killing the other one.
And it is optional, so you don't have
That's
to
exactly
take
right.
it.
So it's like you ping off a couple wounds. It basically just softens the blow on Celestine.
Yeah.
And then you just keep one up long enough for Celestine to resurrect and the other one back up. So that's the whole point of the squad. But with that said, I don't know. I have a hard time justifying. Like, I love the power sword deal, but they're not normal power swords, right? They didn't get the plus one.
No,
They didn't get the +1 to the power swords, as far as I'm aware. So they're still the
well, they're not
strength.
power swords.
Well, they are power swords, but I don't know if they specifically got the power sword buff.
Okay.
It was particular for certain units. I don't remember if they got that or not. If they did, even then, they're still only strength 4, AP -3,
Yeah.
which is not bad, for 3 attacks apiece.
They're taxing on 3s.
But the thing is you're never going to rely on them to do damage. Where Celestine, you can kind of rely on her to do damage because she just is strong in melee. I mean, she's not Smash Cannon as strong, but she's pretty close. I mean, she's still strong.
She holds her own.
And these girls are just, you're going to utilize them to plink wounds here and there, and then essentially protect Celestine if you can, while you can. And because of this, I've made an argument now where you don't always have to take them, and in a lot of cases I won't run them, primarily because it's just 20 points for a couple of bladed wounds. Now it's great to have the bladed.
35.
Yeah, they might be 35, yes. But they were like, I think when I looked at them last, they were like
16 points a model?
It's 36 for 2 of them. So yeah, 16,
13
points a model. No,
36?
18.
18 points a model.
18 points
yeah.
per model.
Yeah.
So they're probably worth the 18 points.
Yeah.
My problem with them is that they're stuck with bolt pistols.
Bolt pistols and power sword.
So they're never going to shoot anything and kill something, probably. They might kill something in combat, maybe, but otherwise the only other reason to have them is to potentially protect a couple of wounds off Celestine.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's
the
the
reason I don't like running them is because I don't ever feel like I put Celestine in a position where she needs to be protected anymore because she's got the character role. So, you just keep her in the blob, you only utilize her when you need to. As long as you're protecting her the way you should be protecting your characters, you probably won't need them.
Yeah.
But, if you do decide to turn her into an assassin for a turn or two, it's not bad to have them run along with her,
So yeah, I think with that being said, like, if you're not running Celestine, you're just not really going to be running them. There's nothing they're doing that you can't get out of, like, the Seraphim unit, I believe.
Yeah. Well, they don't take up a slot, which is kind of cute, I guess.
Yeah.
But
but that's only if you have Celestine.
All right. Well, yeah, I wouldn't run them if I wasn't taking Celestine.
And that's why I'm getting at, like, they're only really good if you're taking Celestine.
Yeah. I mean, they're okay. Like I said, they're one of those units where, like, if you want to
Yeah.
take them, sure, but they're just kind of fill points. It's
Yeah.
really all they're there for. I don't know. I think they're okay, but Celestine's changed so much now where I just don't feel like they're necessary anymore. But they are great sculpts. Honestly, I wish they made canonesses like that, because then you'd have jump canonesses.
Yeah.
They'd be running around butchering everything.
Oh, that'd be so cool having jump cannons.
That's what I was really hoping they would do. So when
But-
they came out with those sculpts.
But yeah, they're a little underwhelming. Hopefully, in the like the new book, they'll be more a lot more like Cryptothralls. Like Cryptothralls are just an army in a can. I would love to see just these super elite sisters protecting Celestine.
Well, I think they'll benefit from the new bodyguard rule too, in the new
Yep.
codex,
Yep.
which means you can put Celestine out in the open and have them hiding behind obscuring, and you can't touch Celestine.
Yep.
Which a lot of new characters have that rule, and that's pretty awesome. It is awesome. So yeah, but that covers them.
But now we're going into Repentia. I think we're going to talk about the Sisters Repentia and the Repentia Superior together.
Yeah.
Because in older editions, they used to be one squad, and the Superior was like the sergeant. Now they split it up, so the Superior's like the character, and she's going to buff the Repentia when she's near. Because you reroll advanced charges, and you reroll wound rolls of 1.
Yeah, so
Yep.
they give reroll. She's basically a lieutenant in melee, which is kind of nice. And then the advanced rerolls is also huge too, or if advanced in charge. But you know,
Advanced in charge.
what's interesting about this is you could just as easily run like a Zephyrin squad and still benefit from the reroll charges because they have an aura reroll charges without her. But if you want the character, she doesn't take up the slot. She costs a few points, but you get the reroll wounds of 1, which is good for Rebecca.
Yeah. Yep. Because they should be wounding most things on 3s, if not 2s.
Yeah. I almost wish it was reroll 1s to hit, but you can always supplement that with a canoness if you need to. So.
Well, you don't need it because the Repentia have Zealot.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Sorry about
Yep.
that. With that said, though, Repentia hitting on 4s is where I have the biggest problem with.
Yeah.
But adding the Zealot keyword, like you mentioned, I think
Yep.
that right there almost kind of nullifies.
Well,
it.
it kind of goes back to hitting on like 2s or 3s. 4+ with a reroll.
It
is
mitigates
pretty
it.
good.
It mitigates it pretty significantly.
Yep.
Having Zealot's pretty huge. Now, with that said, Repentia, if they're not making the charge, they're not nearly as good in combat
No.
as they are when they do make the charge, because that Zealot rule really benefits them.
Well,
during the
Zealot
charge.
is charge, get charged, right?
Maybe, but my point is that if you're just sitting there and you're in combat over a couple of turns, eventually they're gonna fall
Yep.
off.
Charge was charged or heroic.
Yeah. So,
So
like,
you still get Zealot.
well, when they're charged.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
like,
if they sustain
if
combat.
they don't manage to, well, and I think this is a niche case,
Yeah.
but if they don't butcher everything they get into combat with when they charge, then at that point you're going to start seeing the tables flip on them
Yep.
the other way around.
Yep. Because when it comes to offensive power, they're toughness 3 with a 7-up save. Now they have Shield of Faith, so they do have a 6-up invuln.
They get down to a 4-up, which
Yeah,
is cool.
which they're sisters and they're orders, so you
Yep.
can definitely bump them to that 4-up invuln.
And then they have a final feeling pain too.
Then they have a 5-up shrug. Yep. Martyrdom, when they die, you get a miracle dice. Now, if you take Order of the Martyred Lady, I believe you'll actually generate 2 miracle dice when they die. Or I don't think that's only
I
characters.
don't remember exactly how that works, but
I think it's only characters.
and it does
when your
specify
characters die, you
in
come in.
morale phase doesn't help you get the miracle dice. So that
Nope.
means you still can get miracle dice in the morale phase for other units. You just wouldn't be able to get it for them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's kind of whatever. It's cool if you get it. If you don't get it, whatever. You'll probably get an extra miracle dice throughout the game. Great, whatever.
And they have the Acts of Faith, or no, they have Sacred Rites. So the 1 melee Sacred Rite is definitely going to be very effective on it. It'll bring them to AP 4 on 6s to 1.
Yeah.
And then with the Superior, you can reroll 1s, so potentially getting more 6s.
Yeah. Well, with Bloody Rose, that's generally when you're going to run. Bloody Rose, you're going to be Strength 6. You're going to be AP -3, 2 damage, which is going to slaughter Marines.
Oh, yeah. Flat 2 damage.
And they're 3 attacks apiece with Bloody Rose.
3 attacks of that. If
At
you're
AP
standing next
-4.
to a Preacher, you have 4.
Well, they become AP -4 with Bloody Rose, and
Yep.
then the 3 attacks apiece, 4 attacks with the Preacher, and then re-rolling all hit rolls, and then re-rolling wounds of 1 with the Superior. Sorry.
Yep.
And so yeah, these girls are just a big melee ball of destruction, and
Yep.
it's funny because when you start adding their stratagems on top of them too, they just become absurd. I mean, granted, 3 CP to fight twice is expensive, but they're one of the few units in the game that can still keep fighting twice. There's not a whole lot of those left anymore.
No.
But as you're seeing more 9th edition codexes come out, they're very niche units that can do it. Repentia being able to do it is huge.
Yep.
So,
so while your battle sisters are probably going to be like your anvil, these are definitely your hammer unit.
They are
This is
the
what
hammer.
you want to touch the enemy and make it disappear with.
yeah. The fact that you can only have 9 in a squad, I think, is completely irrelevant, because I think
Yeah.
there's nothing in the game that I can think of when these girls are buffed properly, like they should be,
Mm-hmm.
where they're not going to kill it.
Yeah.
I don't think they need any more models.
No.
In most
Even
cases,
against like
they
a
only need
knight, I
9.
mean, they'll only be wounded on like 5s.
Yeah.
But still, it's flat 2 damage, it's AP3, knights don't have involves in close combat.
Yeah. And then when we're rerolling wounds of 1, you know,
Yep, yep.
that-
You
yeah.
should hopefully do enough damage.
You're gonna have a bunch still go through.
Yeah.
It's gonna punch through most things, and frankly, knights aren't gonna do enough to these girls for it to matter. And they are 2 damage apiece, which I think.
So,
Or the knights are D3, right? D3 damage apiece.
knights?
Because their strength 8
Stomp?
AP2
Yeah.
with D3 for their stomp.
Yeah.
So their D3 damage, which I think in that case
Yeah.
actually makes their feel pain somewhat useful, because I think if it was just a flat 2 damage with stomp, then they would probably they wouldn't be able to utilize the feel pain most of the time.
No.
But I think in this case, the feel pain plus the 4-up invuln can actually make these girls quite insane.
Oh yeah, quite durable.
And then there's the
And
strategy.
they need it because they only have 1 wound.
They do, yeah.
With that being said, they
But I want them to die. And this is what
to
I
get the
wanted-
miracle dice.
Well, I want them to die, and this is what I wanted to talk about here. There is, let me see, it's Sisters Repentia, Final Redemption. So 1 CP, a unit that's army is chosen as a target of attack made by a melee weapon. Until the end of the phase, roll 1d6 from the model that is destroyed. Attack made by a melee weapon by a model of the enemy. And on a 4+, they suffer a mortal wound. So when you start losing Repentia, they start losing models too.
Yeah.
So
Well-
if you go up against something you know it's probably going to survive, and they can fight back and kill your Repentia,
That's
you pop a CP and now they're just butchering whatever that's killing them.
that's ultimately the role of the Repentia, is that they're that martyr unit, that suicide bomber unit that
Yeah.
you throw out something, do as much damage as you can, possibly survive. I mean, they're not the easiest things.
Well, I
to
mean, they're
kill.
T3, but 4+
But-
with 5 feel pain. It's
A
really
4-up and a
good.
5-up.
That's pretty good.
It's not the worst thing, but the real problem is that they're, I believe, 16 points a model. So when you start looking at, like, oh yeah, I got 4-up invuln, I got 5-up feel no pain. Sure, those are cool, but when you lose them, when you roll those 1, 2s, and 3s, it's gonna hurt, I feel. So you really need to get your mileage out of these ladies before they disappear.
Yeah, yeah. And I think because of
Which
the way
can
the
be problematic.
well, no, I think the way 9th edition works, especially with the additions of reserves,
Yes.
almost always have a way to protect them, because you can put them in reserves until you need them. And then in addition to that, there's also the transports you can
Yeah,
put
the
them in as well.
transports.
So-
I got some solid transports.
Yeah, and sisters are designed to be able to transport their units.
I mean, you can have a unit as
For
small
cheap.
as 4 models too.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, even if you're running like an army of immolators with a bunch of heavy flamers, you just run a couple of squads of Repentias inside the immolators,
Yeah.
and they're still going to barrel out and butcher everything.
Yeah.
So, they're a unit that, if you need a hammer in your army, you're going to run them. And honestly, arguably, these are one of, if not the strongest melee unit in the game currently, for the points you get out of it. I mean, yeah, 16 points a model, but the fact that
Yeah.
they're strength 6, AP -4, strength 7 potentially, AP -4, with 3 attacks apiece, 4 attacks apiece even, in some cases. And then I think, if I want to say there's like something you can give them where on 6s they get an extra hit too. I don't remember where that was, but I could have sworn it was like stratagem or something I gave
It's
them.
not a secret, right?
Maybe that's one of the secret rights. Yeah, 1 additional hit right there.
Yeah.
Action. So yeah.
Yep.
So they can get a
That's the
lot
one
of
I'm
extra
talking about.
attacks
They
on top too.
benefit from that.
Yeah. So these things can snowball the living hell out of
Yeah.
most units in the game.
You're definitely gonna slam them into Primaris Marines and just have an ear-to-ear grin.
Pick
Do it.
pick the biggest, baddest thing on the table that you otherwise wouldn't be able to kill, and
Yep.
they will take them down, and then they will die, and they will force your opponent to lose models when they die.
Yep.
So they're crazy good. In terms of how they're used, I almost like them as much as I liked how Wolfen used to work, because they just, it's not like they're like incredibly durable, but they're just durable enough to where you're probably going to be able to get them there. They're going to kill whatever they want to kill, and then you lose them, big deal. So moving on, right?
Yep, definitely. So
They're a great unit.
So they're very good. They're a great unit. They're very fluffy for the army too. They cover that area that you don't really have, which is like we said, the battle sisters are the best in close combat. Not a lot of things you have are very good in close combat, like the priests. Oh god, they're not great in combat, but they do that job very well. The only downsides are they're slightly vulnerable to being shot at, and
no shooting.
Yeah, they have no shooting, and you need a delivery mechanism for them.
That's right.
Either reserves or a vehicle, because they are pretty vulnerable otherwise.
Yeah, you can't leave them out in the open, that's for sure. So yeah, they're a great unit, and they're very, very scary. They're very intimidating. And if you don't deal with them, they're going to do something.
Oh yeah,
it's not going to be good for you. If you don't.
They're one of those units where like if they touch you, they're going to do damage.
But yeah, in terms of running these, you can get away with running just like with sisters, basic sisters. You can get away with running all of these as your infantry as long as you supplement with like some vehicles or something.
Yeah, you definitely
and that's
have to,
fine.
You'd have to run this like motor pool.
Yeah, and that's fine. But they're more, in my opinion, they're more of a scare tactic than anything, because anybody with a decent amount of shooting is probably going to be able to get them down if they focus enough. It just depends on whether or not you got enough of them. So, but anyway, so that covers the Repentia. Yeah, we're both in agreement here. They're great units. Moving into the Celestians.
The Celestians, so they're basically like battle sisters, but you get an extra attack, an extra leadership, and then they have like an infiltrate.
Well, they get
like
rerolls with the Canoness, I believe. Reroll hit rolls, any hit rolls.
Yeah, so when they're next to a Canoness, they get full rerolls instead of reroll ones. They have bodyguards, so they can protect your characters, your order characters anyway. And then I wanted to say,
they're
are these
exactly
not the ones that like have a scout move?
No, that's the Dominions. But these girls can actually, I think, take more. If I recall correctly, I think they can take more special weapons than the rest of the units.
So they can't go to 15 like the battle sisters can, but they can take more special weapons in the unit.
Right. So I think
these are kind of like veteran elite sisters.
If I recall correctly, I think you run like 3 or 4 different special type of weapons in the unit for a full squad. So I think they're great, and they fit the. I mean, they're elite slots, so they're you got plenty of elite slots to work with.
Plenty of elite slots.
And the fact that they have the bodyguard rule is kind of cute. In case your characters can be targeted for some reason. But Swarm Protectors is really the reason to take them, I think. The reroll all hits is just insanely good.
Yeah, especially when we're talking about like special weapons.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, you could run
ballistic skill 3 normally.
Run a unit of 2 of these if you're running a Sisters-based army, and they're going to perform for you pretty well. I can't find anything wrong with them in particular. In previous editions, another Beta Codex and all that. They were very hard to want to take because there was nothing super great about them. But with the the bodyguard rule, with the reroll all attacks, that's pretty huge. So they definitely are way better than they were in the past. And I think once 9th edition, the Codex comes out and they get the new bodyguard rule, that's going to make them almost a must-have.
Yep.
So
they're essentially just a little bit better battle sisters.
Yeah.
And I want to say they're like 15 points. So you're paying a little bit of premium for that extra attack and extra leadership.
Yeah, really.
And then the abilities they do have. My problem is I feel like they're not really doing much that you can't get out of your normal battle sisters. Because they're going to be losing the troops objectives secure.
They're 13 points apiece.
They're 13 points?
Yeah, they're 2 points more.
Okay, so that's not terrible.
And then they're elites instead of troops, which
so it's not terrible.
You're not really trading out much to get them.
You're not trading out too much, but like I said, you can take more special weapons in there. But I mean, these are special weapons you could just as easily give to your battle sisters. If they're next to the Canoness, they get full rerolls, which is nice.
I think the reason I would run these,
I don't know if they're too necessary. They're not bad. They're just I don't know if it's necessary.
The reason you can run these, and I think most Sisters players would probably agree with me, is that you can utilize these with the stratagems, and
Yeah, there are some special.
they do, yeah, they do really well with their stratagems. I think they get full reroll hits and wounds with one of the stratagems, which is really, really good.
I think there's a stratagem specifically for them.
Yeah, it's definitely Celestians exclusively, but I think it gives like full rerolls or something like that. Yeah, Celestian squad, whenever they're chosen to Overwatch, shoot, or fight with, until the end of the phase of resolving attack, and you can reroll the hit, and you can reroll the wound.
That's pretty cool.
For 2 CP, which is great. They're just very proficient at what they do. And then in addition to that, you can run...
I don't like that 2 CP though.
Well, right, but when you add in all the extra special weapons that they can take, I think, you can utilize other stratagems too that give like benefits to the extra miracle dice you can utilize more often, and so on and so forth. So I think you get like 3 or 4 special weapons, which is kind of nice. And then when you got the Holy Trinity stratagem you can utilize with them. There's a bunch of other stratagems in there that actually really work well with this particular unit. But the thing is, I don't think you're ever going to run more than maybe 2 of these at tops. And in most cases, I would probably only run 1. So, I mean, they're great squads, and they're basically Battle Sisters, but just a little bit better, with the trade-off of being a little more expensive and the fact that they're elites instead of troops. So,
No, I don't think they can take more. One Celestine can be given a special weapon. One Celestine can be given a heavy weapon. You can take a Solitrum. The Superior can take, pistol range or melee weapons, but I don't think they get more special weapons.
additionally be equipped with 1 melee, can be melee with... Okay, so yeah,
I think that's
maybe they're the same. So it's just the Dominions that can do that.
The Dominions. I think, I think we were thinking of the Dominions.
Yeah. So, I mean, okay, that's I guess an issue. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's still, I think you can justify probably taking a squad, just because of the Celestian stratagem, because of some of the other stuff like the Holy Trinity you can utilize as well, which would just requires you to take a bolter, a flamer, and a melta.
Which would be your 2 sisters
Your special
and
weapon,
the
superior, and your
Yeah.
So I mean,
You
you can utilize it. The problem is whether or not you want to tech that unit out to do
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
I think, like I said, you can justify taking a unit of these, and it's not going to hurt you in your army at all because they're only 2 points more per model.
It's not a huge increase.
And those extra reroll hits and being able to reroll all hits and wounds in a phase can be pretty critical. But I think in most cases, you're just as fine just taking regular sister squads because you can fit another sister in there with an extra bolter, or 2 sisters in there with an extra bolter for the points. So
I'd almost say, like taking like a squad to basically like bodyguard your characters wouldn't be terrible, but
yeah, it's one of those things where it's like it's totally fine if you take one, it's not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
But in most cases, I would probably just be like, I'll just take a sister squad instead.
Yeah.
Save myself some points and essentially get the same effort or effect out of it, and I get objective secured out of the unit as well.
So now we're going into the Seraphim unit. So this is
Zephyrim. Say them right. Everybody online says them wrong. They're not Seraphim. They're not Seraphim.
I don't know why I said Seraphim.
They're Zephyrim.
Zephyrim.
I have to give you crap about it because I hear so many people always try to
pronounce it.
pronounce
Maybe Seraphim's just easier to say.
Well, it's because they
but
are.
Zephyrim.
They're the melee version of Seraphim.
Yep.
And the name is very similar.
That's probably why.
But yeah, so they're like they're the opposites. But Zephyrim, Seraphim, I see why people mix it up, but it's. I gotta give you crap about it.
Yeah, no, you're perfectly fine. So these are your melee jump infantry ladies. Oddly enough, they're not in the fast attack; they're in the lead, but they're running around with power swords. They have 2 attacks, hitting on 3 is 12-inch movement.
Yeah.
What's nice is they have the angelic visage, so they just flat have a 5-up invuln. Because they have the Shield of Faith and then +1.
They do. And almost all the time they're going to have a 4-up invuln. Because they're going to be running around with stuff
like
that gives the +1s.
Or something, yeah.
So yeah, more often than not they're going to have the 4-ups. Sky Strike is crazy cool because of the jump packs, being able to deep strike. I mean, that's what they're there for.
They're infantry, so you can jump in behind enemy lines or have them push a button if you really want. But ultimately, you're going to try and charge them in there, get some damage in with those power swords.
These things don't shoot well. They don't.
No, they just have bolt pistols.
If you're looking at
just
maybe
one.
at most 10 bolt pistols or 9 bolt pistols and a plasma pistol.
Yeah, like a plasma pistol.
So they're not going to do much damage shooting, if any. And the entire goal is to either get them in and have them do an action, or drop them in and have them melee butcher stuff.
Yep.
And with the power swords, AP -3 and Bloody Rose, they can certainly do it. 3 attacks, Bloody Rose and charge, AP -4 and their sword. They're going to kill Marines even at 1 damage apiece pretty quick.
Yeah, I definitely feel like their ideal targets are a little more limited because they only have 1 damage. They're not like the Repentia where you can chop through almost anything.
Yeah.
They have to have a little bit softer targets to deal with. The AP does good against like power armor, but if you throw these ladies against a like vehicle, you're gonna get very
they're probably not going to chop a vehicle down. I almost lost a Dimacaron for my Tyranids in 1 game against them, against a 10-man unit, but even though I think it's still 2 wins left over. So I think these are great units, and the fact that they are so melee oriented gives you another melee option for the army you don't normally get.
It does. They're not terrible.
And I think their most useful thing is you pay the extra points to get the pennant, and it gives that aura 6-inch reroll charges.
Yes.
So this
well,
is
that's
your,
all. I would argue that's an auto include on them. You need that reroll, especially if you're going to try and deep strike into charge.
Yeah.
Because deep striking in and trying to roll a 9 on 1 shot is pretty rough, even with miracle dice.
Right. Yeah. It's like 10 points or something like that, but it's an aura reroll charges, and you've got so much stuff in your army when you're playing Bloody Rose or something like that.
It's definitely worth
that needs to make the charges. Those rerolls are huge.
So they're a solid unit. The AP on the power swords can definitely go a long way for you. I personally prefer the Seraphim more. We'll get into those later, but because these are a little pricier. I think they're like 1, maybe 2 points more.
If they are, it's because of the power sword.
Yeah, it's because of the power sword,
like
really.
Points as opposed to because I think you get 2 bolt pistols. Otherwise, in the Seraphim, I think the points start to equal out when you look at the special weapons you can take. Because when they take like the Inferno pistols and stuff, then they start to add up.
Then they start to add up a little. But like that's what I'm getting at. They can't take any special weapons outside of like a plasma pistol. Yeah. So you better have the ideal target for those power swords. Yeah. And I like the Seraphim better because you can come in and you're pretty much guaranteed to shoot. You don't have to rely on a charge, which could go south for you.
Well, yes and no. So they're in a, Seraphim are like an assassin target, whereas Zephyrim are more like a light infantry, or I guess maybe they could kill like Death Guard units, maybe, I guess.
I guess they're damage 1 instead of 2. So.
Yeah, so they don't really care about the multi.
But you're going to be wounding them on 5s because you're only strength 4.
Yeah. I think they do suffer a little bit from their lack of attacks. I would love to see them get more attacks.
Yeah, 2 attacks is a little low. It's really the strength, though.
But, I kind of compare them to like Raptors and Vanguard, or not Vanguard, but like Assault Marines. So you kind of utilize them really for the jump.
Oh, that's what, they have Raptor's blows, so when they resolve attacks with melee weapons, they do reroll their wounds. Yeah. I knew there was something I did like about them. Yeah. That's really good. Yeah. So like against the Death Guard, you won't have 5s, but you will reroll the wounds. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, and they can kill stuff.
Yeah, they can kill stuff.
It's not it's not the end of the world if they get into combat and only get a handful of attacks. They're still probably.
Yeah, I know I like them. I just like the Seraphim a little better.
I think the thing I like most about them is the fact that they're cheap enough you can still take them and utilize them for doing actions, and not really have to worry about like an opponent charging into them, because even if a couple of them survive, they're going to turn around and start doing a lot of wounds back. So they're a little intimidating in terms of what they do, but they're definitely more of a utility type unit, I think, than like a unit you're going to take and just, they're not like Repentia where they drop down and just butcher everything that you can combat with. No. They're probably not going to do that. But the fact that you can utilize them for different roles, I think, is probably what makes them so good. But Seraphim, have the same roles.
They're probably cheap enough that, like, if you did deep strike them in and assault that Basilisk, even though you're probably not killing it, you're still timing it out.
Right. Yeah. You're forcing them to attack you, and
you got 5 up involved.
5 up involved, which not everybody has.
So shoot my battle cannon at you, I say. Yeah. What? Yeah, I'm fine.
Yep. Well, they're 3 up base too. They're still wearing power armor. That's no joke, So. I mean, they're not bad. And the only thing that's that's really hurting them in terms of their defense is the toughness 3-1 wound. But
toughness 3-1 wound.
But whatever. Like I said, they're utility type.
Yeah, they're like 15-ish points, so they're not too expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So moving on to the Dialogus. Dialogus.
Yeah. So.
That's another one people like. They got multiple, like how they define or whatever say the name.
Dialogus.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Dialogus, I think, is what I would go with, but who knows?
I don't know that the Dialogus is really all that necessary. So
Mm,
it's just about it's a character. It's got like a sister stat line with like 3 attacks and 4 wounds.
yeah.
And she's got Loud Hauler, so add 1 to leadership characteristics as Sororitas within 6 inches. Again, morale's not a huge issue for you. And it can ignore mortar wounds in the psychic phase on a roll 5+. Spiritual Fortitude.
This character, what is he getting shot? So it's
Yeah,
like,
and
whatever.
how often are you taking mortal wounds in the psychic phase?
It's like if somebody gets
Yeah.
a smite off on you, you get to save it.
And then the
Okay.
main reason you're taking this is the stirring
Rhetoric, yeah.
rhetoric. And
Rhetoric.
you can perform an act of faith on the modeler unit within 6 inches, even if you increase.
It increases or decreases that. It's the Triumph's relic rule,
But
on
it
a single
specifically doesn't
model.
stack with the Triumph.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It's like a cheap version of the Triumph for that particular.
For that
Relic
particular role.
Yeah.
Um,
The Loud Hailer is kind of cute, I guess. The extra leadership, I guess, maybe might play a role, but
Yeah,
probably
it
won't.
could.
But yeah, the Stirring Rhetoric or Rhetoric, whatever, that's exactly why you're going to pay the points for this. That +1, -1 is a huge difference in the game. But if you're playing the Triumph, you don't care anyway. You don't need
you
it.
know,
So,
yeah, if you're playing the Triumph, you really don't need a Dialogus
Yeah.
at all. I don't know how relevant it is boosting up a miracle die up or down 1, just taking a character just for that 1 ability. I don't know how relevant that is, because you should be sitting on like a dozen miracle dice, like half a dozen to a dozen at any
I mean,
point.
with as many 1s and 2s as I roll, I love having that ability.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it.
But still, I mean, you're making that 1 into a 2,
Well,
and that's going to make an armor save.
Well,
So, yeah.
I mean, for me, it's like, okay, the way I look at it is like, you know, I got a melt the gun out there, it's doing 5 damage. I can boost that by 1 just by paying 35 points.
Yeah.
Sure, why not? That's awesome. But, you know, right place, right time, and then you're also,
Yeah.
you know, if this model ever gets the opportunity to do what it needs to do. And I run the Triumph too much for me to care about this model that
Yeah.
much. So I think it's great to have it if you're not running the Triumph, but you're going to run into problems with maybe not having enough elite slots with all the Repentia.
Yeah,
with all
it's
your
an elite.
characters. You're
It's
always
always
taking the
been
magnifier, so
You gotta think about secondaries. This is another
Yeah.
character your enemy can kill for
Yeah.
assassinate.
yeah.
It's not terrible. It's just
I think it's great. It's just
It's very niche.
It's fighting for spots in your list that
Yeah.
you otherwise are probably going to pay elsewhere. I think it's still great. It's just like I said, I almost never not run the Triumph, so
because I mean, once we take like
I don't care.
a Repentia Superior and a Preacher, some and like
Well, you got, like,
Hospitaller and
the Superior is going to be
Magnifier.
free.
Like we're getting up to like 6 elite
Yeah.
units pretty fast,
Well,
and this
Repentia, you can take 3 squads of 4 or a whole bunch of max squads,
Yeah.
and you probably should be with as good as they are. So that's automatically half your slots gone. You're taking a magnifier, so that's another slot
yeah,
gone.
and like I was just talking about characters. I'm not even talking about like elite units.
Yeah.
So,
That's
that's one
actually-
thing I was going to talk about with this codex is your elite slot is flooded.
It is packed.
It is
It
packed.
was packed to the brim. And that's funny that we were talking about Zephyrim and Seraphim and why you like Seraphim better. That's another reason why I could argue making Seraphim better.
I have fast attack slots. I don't have elite slots.
That's right, yeah. There's not a whole lot of fast attacks in the army. There's
No.
the Dominions and there's the Seraphim. That is it. That is it for fast attack.
Yep.
Um,
There's 2.
so I think it's kind of silly that Zephyrim aren't fast attack because they are just a melee version of Seraphim.
I mean, they're jump infantry. It makes sense. But they're also like elite sisters. So
Well, aren't Seraphim elite sisters?
well, I don't think so.
I mean, they're literally the same model with just a couple of different parts. They come in the same box together.
Like the Seraphim have a higher leadership, so I think
Oh,
they're.
okay. Okay,
I think they're better in
They're
systems.
elite Seraphim that's traded out their bolt pistols for swords, and now they fill the elite slot.
Mhm.
I still think that's funny. I just don't see why they need to be in elites, but that's just me.
Yep.
I like
So,
jump pack units.
Dalagus is very niche, and it's really competing for slots. Otherwise,
Yeah.
not terrible.
Well, it's funny too because it's got the Dialogus staff, but it's a +1 strength, AP 0, 1 damage. I mean, you might as well be punching at that rate. Why does
Yeah.
this thing even have a staff that does extra strength?
I mean, we're going to the hospitaler, The Hospitaller has the Trojan tools, so she's got her little like
she's
needles
AP
and stuff.
she's
And she's AP what?
She's AP2 in Bloody Rose.
In Bloody Rose, she's AP2.
She becomes a nightmare.
The Hospitaller's fightier than the Dialgus.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, but yeah, I think the Dialgus, if you're gonna run it, you're gonna run it because you don't have Triumph and because of the fact that you have the slots open and maybe some extra points. But it's not a must take. It's not one of those things where you have to run in your army. But I mean, I like it. I think it's okay. I just don't know if I'm gonna, in most cases, probably run it. So moving into Hospitaller.
Hospitaller, yeah. The so this is the apothecary for your army.
You're so hospitable, Mars.
Hospital. So she's got a sister stat line. Like we said, she has the Trojan tools, so strength user, so strength 3, but it is AP1, AP2 in Bloody Rose.
Yeah.
3 attacks, weapon skill 4, so she's not too fighty at all.
4 attacks, AP -2. I'm taking it. No, she's not there for melee, but if she's not there for melee, it's kind of silly.
But what you're taking it for is once per movement phase. Yeah, she's an apothecary, so she can bring one model sister model back in an infantry unit. Well, actually, Adeptus Ministorum. So anything
Adeptus. Ministorum infantry.
Any Ministorum infantry.
That's Celestine. That's Catherine. That's.
I'm pretty sure that's even like Flagellants.
Yep. Anything at all in the entire book.
Infantry.
This whole book.
Otherwise, she can add D3 back to the unit. So like we were talking about earlier, that's one of the few ways you can heal Triumph of St. Catherine. But again, other than that, she is kind of fighting for position in your elite slots. I think she's really good, especially because you can bring back any sister that you want within range. It is a short, like 3-inch range.
Yeah, I mean it's an apothecary rule.
Yeah, it's an apothecary.
It's exactly like the apothecary. She brings it back with 1 wound remaining. She's just a cheap apothecary. 4 sisters of battle.
Yeah, she's really cheap. She's like 45 points.
And you know she gets all the benefits. She gets the Sacred Rites, Shield of Faith, Axe of Faith, all that stuff too. So you know she's there. She's gonna do some cool stuff while she's around. The fact that she can heal up even the Triumph, I think, is what makes her so incredibly good.
Yep.
But she doesn't quite. She's not. I mean, she's not on the apothecary's level because she can't take a warlord trait that gives objective security to every unit in your army.
Yeah.
But you know, she does her job and she does it well.
Yep, she does her job really well. I wouldn't say she's an auto take, but like if you do take her, I think you're gonna get a lot of mileage out of her. Like even on the low end, like even if you don't take St. Catherine to heal her up. Even on the low end, you say you're bringing back like 1 basic battle sister with a bolt gun.
Yeah, it's 11 points.
It's 11 points. She's only like 45 herself, somewhere around there. Yeah. And think about how hard they just had to work to kill that 1 battle sister. Because like you're ignoring AP 1 and 2, and then you have like a 4 bin phone, and then you just brought that model that they worked so hard to kill back.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is I think like when you look at Sisters of Battle, especially the ones with AP -2 = 0 from Valor's Heart. I've watched so many times where people just unload so many shots into a unit of sisters, only having 1 or 2 sisters die, and then this thing will bring 1 back, and it's like.
And that's actually what I was going to say that I really like about Hospitaller is in Martyred Lady, when you lose a model, the rest of the unit gets +1 to hit. Yeah. Even if the Hospitaller brings that 1 model back. Right. Yeah. So you can still have like a 15. Battle sister unit, all hitting on 2s with their bolt guns.
They get angry. They're like, "You shot my sister! I saw him die!" And then she's like, "But I'm okay.
You killed Fritz. No, I'm okay. You killed Fritz."
Well, and the model is almost comically awesome. Now, don't get me wrong, the sculpt is amazing, right? It looks so much better than the old sculpt. But you got like a sister on the ground that's dying, she had her hand up. Yep. It's so cinematically hilarious. But what's crazy about this thing is its base is so freaking massive.
Well, yeah, it's on a what?
It's 40 a 40 mil base.
It's this tiny little sister on a big 40 mil base.
It's a 40 mil base, and this thing has a 3-inch aura for bringing models back. So 40, that base size gives her so much extra range as opposed to like a normal character would be like a 32 or something. And now she's covering so much ground that, you know, even though she only moves 6 inches a turn, that's all she needs, you know? So she can keep up with the army, she can stick by all the sister squads. The sister squads can still spread out a lot, and she can keep continuously bringing models back. So I think she's really good.
She's really good.
Really.
I think the only bad thing to say about her is just, again, she's competing for slots.
Yeah, and you don't. And that's the thing. You don't have to take her because it's only a couple extra wounds per game.
Yep.
She may not pay her points back.
No, but like even if you bring like 4 sisters back throughout the game, she makes up for herself.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, it's demoralizing to opponent too, and especially that's one of the things I hated the most about playing against Necrons. You sit and kill all these models, and then even one getting back up is just frustrating.
Well, it's just the way of it. Like, it's no better, really, say, than like Death Guard. It's just that you actually did something, and then they counteract it. Whereas, like with Death Guard, you're like, oh, they made their save. Yeah.
Right.
You're not so disheartened because your hard work is gone.
Well,
it's
because
you didn't get any progress
your
in the
opponent
beginning.
rolled well. Yeah.
Whereas against Necrons, you kill 20 of them, they all stand back up.
Yeah.
You just feel like you did nothing.
Yeah, and that's the same with like the Apothecary, the Hospitaller. You know, you kill those models off, and then they start getting back up, or they start healing wounds, and it's like, oh, come on, really? I did all this for nothing.
But, yeah.
Moving into the more important. Actually, no,
more important.
Let me take that back. The most important unit in this entire book, hands down,
For what
the Magnifier.
For what you can do because of
Magnifier.
the tail of the
Tail
Stoic.
of the Stoic.
So again, this is another battle sister. 4 wounds, 3 attacks character. But the reason you're taking this one is for the 6-inch aura, and you pick a tail at the start of the deployment.
Yeah.
So you see what your opponent is doing before you pick. But what is it? Deny the Witch test, which you're probably never going to take. You can add Tail of the Warrior, which is +1 strength. To order units within range, so again, if you have like Repentia, makes them a little stronger. Yeah. But the Tail of the Stoic is where it's at, because that's the one that reduces. It stacks with.
And it stacks with.
the Valor's Heart. So that's how
zero.
you're getting that AP2 equals 0, because it stacks with their inherent order.
AP -1, and then it becomes AP -2. Yeah.
But otherwise, you can take it in any order, even like Bloody Rolls, and at that point, AP1 is treated as AP0.
And that's still amazing. That's
So,
really, really good.
So you get shot by heavy bolters, which are AP1, and your sisters are sitting in cover, so they get a 2-up armor.
Yeah. Well, even like Marine bolters with doctrines, heavy flares. There's so many weapons out there now.
There's so many AP1s floating around.
This is massive for an army.
Yep.
This makes them so good. And this, even like for cover saves, this can allow you to get a 2-up save at all times as long as you're covered. I mean, granted, 3-up is great already for most units, especially cheap units like Sisters. But when they hide in cover and they get a 2-up, then when you start dabbling around with like AP -1, -2 weapons, it starts to make that cover not feel as good.
Yep.
But this thing turns around and tells that cover that, no, you're getting your cover save. You're getting that 2-up every time. So it is huge for an army.
So the Magnifier, in a nutshell, doesn't seem amazing.
No.
But where it comes in is when you combine it with like Valia's Heart and Hospitaller, and then the other, just a lot of area effect buffs.
Any of the horror stuff, yep. Another thing that's fun about her, actually, you know what? I treat her like the same way I treat the Space Marine Apothecary. Now, I know we were talking about how the dialogist, or not the dialogist, but the Hospitaller plays that role. Yep. The Magnifier actually does kind of what the Apothecary does for the army. The Apothecary for Marines is like the unsung, like superhero of the army. Like, that army can just run off the Apothecary for auras and be just fine. The same thing for Sisters with the Magnifier. The AP -1 = 0 is great. You can spend a CP to get another one. And utilize the
Which is
going
to the Tail of Warrior.
Now, granted, that's better in Bloody Rose than anything else. But
even on Battle Sisters,
even on regular units, even if they're not Bloody Rose, that +1 to strength makes them strength 4. And now all of a sudden you're hitting things or wounding things on 4s that you otherwise wouldn't, or wounding things on 3s when they're toughness 3 models. Yeah. All your basic units in the game these Sisters are fighting against now can actually win a fight, potentially. So those two together make the Magnifier really good. The Tail of the Faithful is kind of one of those things where you're probably not going to run it because you don't need it.
Yeah, because you can reroll a Deny the Witch test.
Yeah. Well, when you're only denying the Witch on a 1d6.
Well, you might not even be fighting Sectors. You'd be fighting Tau.
Yeah.
Which is good because you don't pick it until right before deployment.
I mean, it's situational, but I think if you need it, it's one of those things that's kind of cool to have. Yeah. But in most cases, the Tail of Stoic and the Warrior, those are going to be used the most. And then I use her, because you're already using her for that 6-inch aura for the Tail of Stoic, you unlock the fact that she wants to be a warlord because of that. So now you start stacking warlord traits on her, like Indomitable Belief, where she gives the +1 invuln saves to the shield of faith.
Yep.
So now your whole army's getting that 5-up invuln save while they're within 6 inches of her. You take the Book of St. Lucius relic, which gives her 3 inches to her auras, and now all of a sudden this Tale of the Stoic, Tale of the Warrior becomes 9 inches, and her Indomitable Beliefs becomes 9 inches as well.
Oh,
so now she's boosted up this big aura range. She becomes a linchpin for the army, and even though she's not scary by herself, the fact that she does so much for the army for what she does for her points makes her incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a throwaway character too. So like if you lose her, big deal. You only lose them what 40, 45 points.
Yeah, not too expensive. It was just a little
And
elite character.
what's even more about that is every time you lose a character, and there's a lot of stratagems and stuff in here where you could benefit from losing a character. So honestly, that's why I think she's probably the best character in this, the best unit in this entire army, because she just does so much for the army. She's fitted for being in the dot center of the bubble, giving out auras to everything, and it becomes an impenetrable, almost unkillable army with her in the list. So yeah, very great unit, very very much worth the points. Tale of Stoic, definitely take. Tale of Warrior, that's situational.
You can spend a CP and get it if you need it.
But if you're playing Bloody Rose, take it.
But it's really nice to have the Tale of the Faithful that reroll Deny the Witch tests, because say you're playing against Thousand Sons, they have psychic tests everywhere.
Yeah,
so that's going to be really good. And on top of that, Tale of the Stoic isn't going to do too well against them because a lot of their stuff is AP2.
Well, yeah, like
to
the
begin with.
rubrics being AB2 and stuff can be a problem.
So unless you're playing Valorous Heart, you might not even work on them.
I am.
But yeah, that'd be a situation like, say you're playing Bloody Rose, Tale of the Stoic isn't going to do anything against Thousand Sons, so you could take Tale of the Faithful and get to reroll your Deny the Witch test.
Well, like you said, I mean, you can pick before the game starts, and you're fine.
Yep.
That's good. I like that. So, yeah, she's great.
Just again, I think the only problem is fighting for elite slots.
I think she's enough of an auto take.
She's towards the top.
Where she's gonna fill that elite slot, and you're not even gonna feel bad about it in almost any situation.
The model's really cool.
Yeah. So okay. So moving into Crusaders, Death Cult Assassins. We can just lump
yeah,
those
we can.
together.
Yeah, well, all three of these, I think. So these are your auxiliaries, like I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
You got Crusaders, your Death Cult Assassins, and your Arcoflagellants.
Yeah.
So you have to take priests in your army to even include any of these. And these are just your auxiliary, melee, fighty kind of.
No, I don't think you have to have a priest to take them. You just have to. These don't take up a slot if you take a priest.
No.
They become free. I don't think.
No. There's a rule earlier.
Is there something for that?
Yeah, you can only take these if you have a priest in there.
Oh, is it like a Ministorum thing, or?
It's where like the sacred rites are and stuff.
Oh.
This book's a little backwards.
I don't know. We'll go with what you're saying here. I don't remember if that was exactly the rule or not, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm quoting
You're going to run a preacher or missionary anyway if you're running these units, regardless. So even if that is the case.
Because these are the ones that affect benefit the most from war hymns.
Well, and there's nothing else. There's nothing else that can buff them in the army.
Yep.
The only thing that can buff them is the preachers, the priests.
Yep.
So, Crusaders, I think, are awesome for their points because you can get up to 6 Crusaders in the unit, and then they all come with power swords and a storm shield. Now they also have the old storm shields. I don't think they were upgraded to the new storm shields. And the reason I say that is because it says every model has a storm shield.
Yep.
But what's interesting, what's interesting about these storm shields too, is they're not an item, right? They're
not warrior.
They're an ability.
Yeah.
It's an ability. It's a literal ability, which means even if the new storm shields change some of their rulings, I'm pretty sure these ones still have the old 3+ invuln saves. Mm-hmm. So 3+ invuln, even on a model with 1 wound, can be pretty nasty. And you get up to 6 of these in the unit with Zealot and Power Sword. So they're rerolling all their hits. They're they're AP -3 weapons. and they can get like three attacks apiece or something like that, but they're only like 15 points.
Yeah, they're real cheap.
So
well, okay.
they're kind of cute. You know?
I think the Crusaders are like 13. The Death Cults are 11, and I want to say the Arcoflagellants are around 14, 15.
Let me have a look here.
So they're all pretty similar in point costs. Now, we lump into all three of them together because.
Well, because they all fit the Ministorum. They don't have Sororitas. They're just Ministorum.
Yeah, they're just Ministorum, and
Yeah.
I actually found it right here. Attachment that does not include any Ministorum priests can only include one Ecclesiastical Battle Conclave unit, which all three of these are.
So you can only get one of them.
You can only get one of them
Right.
unless you have a priest.
Right. Okay. So that's you know.
So it was close to what I said, but
So okay, yeah, Crusaders are 16 points apiece. Flagellants are, I think, 15. No,
they're 14 or 15. I want to say
they're 45 points for 5. I
for
think.
3. So they're
For
15.
3. Okay, so 15 apiece. And then Death Cult Assassins, I think you get 2 per unit, right?
Yeah. Yep. I want to say
So
they're
they're 13 points apiece.
13.
So the Assassins
And
are
then
the
the
cheapest. Crusaders are 16 points apiece.
Okay. Yep.
And then yeah, you get 15 for
So
Flagellants.
it's really kind of what ability you really want for your auxiliary fighters. So the Crusaders have their real nice 3-up inbone.
Crusaders are the durable ones.
Yep, they're the durable ones. Death Cult Assassins, so they have.
They're basically demons with power swords.
So, yeah, so they have the AP3, so they're going to be good against like power armor stuff. And then the Arcoflagellants are good against like hordes of orcs. So they only have the AP1, but they get lots of attacks.
They get lots of attacks. D3 hit rolls for each attack in melee.
Yep.
And there's a stratagem that makes them a flat 3 for every attack in melee.
Yep.
So when you got 10 of these in the battlefield, they're running like 90 attacks for 10 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think what 3 times, well, they get what, 2 attacks plus 3 with the
so it'd be a flat 3.
missionaries.
They have 2 flat plus you're next to
Missionaries. So
next to a
they're
missionary.
priest orders. So they
the
get
war
3
hymns.
attacks apiece.
So that'd be 9 attacks a
So
model.
9 attacks per times 10. That's 90 attacks.
Yep, and they are strength +1 plus their strength 4. So these are strength 5 if you want 1 damage attacks, and
Yeah.
you get like 9 per model, possibly more.
Yeah.
And they have Zealot, so they're hitting on 4s because they're only web skill 4, but web skill 4, hitting on 4 is rerolling
Hits.
from Zealot,
Yeah.
and getting like 9 attacks a model.
90
They can just butcher
90
through
attacks.
lightly armored enemies like
Well,
orcs.
And if I recall correctly, maybe they changed this, but I'm pretty sure they have something that allows them to fight twice or something like that, or fight on death or something like that.
Fight on death.
There's
I'm
there's
pretty sure
something
you
else
can't make
they
them
do.
fight twice, but
Yeah.
there might be something like when they die, they cause more wounds,
Well,
like their Repentia.
So our buddy James plays this army as well, and I think he likes running the Flagellants, and these
Yep.
things, yeah, they just butcher everything in their path, just like Repentia. The thing is that they're not as reliable as Repentia are, because Repentia are just gonna almost always get that wounding on 3s, where these guys will probably wound on 5s in a lot of cases, or 4s in a lot of cases. What's kind of wicked about these guys, though, is that they just bury you in attacks.
Yep.
So you're gonna drown in wounds regardless.
And they're strength 5, so even against like toughness 8,
Yeah.
you get your 5 then.
Yeah, and they get 5 feeling pains too, so it's not like, you know,
Yes.
even though their invulns are non-existent, and they
So-
have a 7-up base save.
So that's what I was getting into, is they are 15-point models, so they're kind of getting up there with
They're expensive.
Space Marines.
Mm.
Now, they have a lot of offensive power, but in terms of defense, they're only toughness 3. Their save is a 7+.
They don't get a save.
They don't get a save.
They,
You're completely reliant on that 5+ shrug.
yeah.
And because, yeah, they don't have Shield of Faith or anything like that.
Mhm.
Now, they have 2 wounds a model, which is helpful, but when you're toughness 3, just...
It's not going to take much to take it
It's
down.
not going to take much.
You're
They're-
looking at maybe 20 ablative wounds.
like a guardsman can take
20
these
wounds
guys
take
down
them.
pretty effectively. And
Yeah.
that's saying something.
Yeah. I think what I like most about them is that you can deliver them very quickly. The fact that they move 7 inches makes them pretty quick.
That helps.
And then I think they also, if I recall correctly, they have like an advance in charge or something crazy like that as well that they can get. I could be wrong, but I'm kind of remembering some.
Yeah,
vaguely
if they do, I'm
cool
pretty
thing.
sure you're still going to want to put them in a vehicle because they are so squishy.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing is you're gonna put them in something to carry them there. You don't ever want them out in the open. And even obscuring is kind of risky
Yep.
for them. So yeah, if you're gonna run these guys, you're gonna try and get them on the battlefield as fast as possible, or
So
use them as a counter unit.
I'm personally a fan of the Death Cult Assassins because they're 13, they're pretty cheap, and they get 4 attacks a model at DP3.
Things are really fun to
And they
see.
do have weapon skill 3.
Yeah.
With Zealot.
I'm on the
So-
exact opposite end of the spectrum.
You hate
I'll run
them?
the flagellants, but I will never run assassins.
You'll never run Assassins?
Well, part of the problem is that they don't have models worth taking. The flagellants got the new models and all that stuff, so they're,
Yeah.
they're kind of cool.
Um,
Crusaders, they look cool. They need new models, but they look cool.
So you can only have a unit of between 2 and 6 Death Cult Assassins, which I think 6 is a real nice
It's
number
the same as the
to
Crusaders.
put inside your immolators.
Yeah.
And that'd be 6 times 4, that'd be 24 attacks.
Well,
At
the
strength
priest-
4,
the
hitting on
priest is 30
3s.
attacks.
Hitting on 3s, rerolling your hits, AP3, they're only 1 damage.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to defense, they're toughness 3 with a 5 up invuln. So it's
Yeah,
not
they're
the
demons.
worst. Yeah, they're demons.
Yeah. The way I look at them is like really nasty, like cheap warp talons.
Yeah. I feel that.
I mean, they're
Yeah.
slower, but they kind of play
Well,
the
yeah,
same role.
they're still movement 7.
Yeah.
But they're inexpensive. They put out a lot of attacks. I just feel like they're a little bit safer bet than the Arcoflagellants because you're paying a lot for these things that don't get an armor save at all.
Yeah.
But with that being said, the Crusaders, the Arcoflagellants, and the Death Cult Assassins, unfortunately, they all get pushed to the wayside because of Repentia. Repentia have Sacred Rites,
Yeah.
they have Order, they have Shield of Faith,
Yeah.
and
Well, the fact that
And-
they're Sororitas is what makes
yeah,
them
the
so
Sororitas, it just takes them way above.
They literally fill
these guys
all
do.
3 of these roles,
Yeah.
or all 3 of these units' roles, and they benefit from stuff that these 3 do not,
Yep.
or roughly around the same points.
Yeah, they're a little costier than these guys.
They're much more vicious, though, in terms of their offense
Yes.
and their defense.
That's the thing is like even the Flagellants who get so many attacks still kind of struggle against that flat 2 damage that the Repentias get.
Yeah. Well, strength 6,
Yeah.
8, and 2 damage apiece at AP minus 3.
So when it comes to these 3 units, they're cute. They're nice little auxiliary units. Like
you can throw them in. They can. Still
that's
be
the only
good.
reason I like the Death Cult Assassins is because you can take 2 of them and you can just sit in the corner and push a button.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's fine. I spent 26 points to push a button.
Yeah.
Worth.
And honestly, like, if I was running, I'd probably run the Crusaders. But the Crusaders are basically the defensive versions of the Assassins.
Yep.
And that's exactly what I would do with them. I would sit them on something, put them on an objective, or push a button. You do an action with them, and then literally just hope that they survive long enough to complete the action.
Yep.
And then
And-
right there, they paid their points.
And right there, they pay the points, and that's what we could say about these. Is like, they do have that one very niche rule, but they do it very well.
Mhm.
Otherwise, I think these 3 can just sit on the bench and watch the sisters.
If
Repentia
it
do the
wasn't
battle.
for the fact that there's other things in this army that can fulfill their role without losing the sisters stuff, these would be worth considering taking in most cases. But yeah, because of the fact that you have the sisters options available, most sisters players are probably just going to run the sisters units.
Yep.
So, but yeah, so that kind of covers it for them. That actually covers it for elites. So we're moving into
Fast attack. So we got the Dominion squad, and this is the unit that gets up to 4 Dominions can be equipped with special weapons.
So this actually was my favorite unit in the army until the Repressor got put to Legends.
Yeah.
The Repressor is a Forge World immolator, essentially.
Excuse me.
It's a Forge World immolator that
Got a hole in my lip, apparently.
it's a Forge World immolator that unfortunately lost. It had 6 open slots. So it was basically one of the only open top vehicles in the game left, barring like your Eldari, Jakari stuff that's open top. Orcs and things, I don't know what that has them, but there are very, very few open top units that have like firing ports or whatever that they can actually shoot out of and still be inside the vehicle.
Yeah.
The Repressors were able to do that, and that's what made the Dominions so good, because the Dominions can load up on all these special weapons and
then
sit
shoot out
inside
of
the
vehicle.
tank, be protected by the tank, move way up the board with their Vanguard move, because they do get Vanguard.
Yeah, they get Vanguard.
And then they would be able to sit and do all this damage while never taking any damage in return. And then when the vehicle does die, they just get out and still claim objectives, still keep shooting, and so on and so forth. So, Dominions were my favorite unit because of the Repressor, but when the Repressor got moved to Legends, The problem is that when you compare these to, I'd say Retributors are probably the closest next thing to them. It's nice to still have the Vanguard move, because it could be useful throughout a game. But the problem is the Retributors are just far and away better units, because they're just so powerful in Sisters of Battle Army.
Yeah.
That's not saying that Dominions can't be utilized. They're basically Sisters with more special weapons, and they fill the fast attack slot. So if you don't have slots for some reason, you want to fill fast slots, there you go.
Maybe you used up all your troop slots and you want more Sisters.
I don't know. There's not really much to be said other than the fact that these are basically just Sisters of Battle with extra special weapons.
Yeah.
Now.
With Vanguard.
Now.
The Vanguard can definitely help because 4 Meltas that get up to 9 inches because you can move as though it's your movement phase, and that means you can advance.
Yeah.
Potentially up to a maximum of 9.
Yeah.
So being 9 inches out of your deployment zone and then having Meltas turn on can be real nice.
Now, GW has made it clear that they're not done with the Sisters line. You know, they got the release of the new, like, that battle suit looking thing that's coming out.
The battle suit thing, they got the new, like, Predator
There's
tank.
a new Predator style tank, and that's actually what I was getting at, the vehicles in general. I have some hope for Dominions potentially making a comeback, because even though I know the Repressor got moved to Legends, I could see GW being like, okay, well, we're going to add another vehicle to make this unit useful, and they could come back out with something like the Repressor to make these utilized properly again.
Yeah, and you can take just a mammoth unit of 5 of them, and then have 4 special weapons in that unit. Just put them in the back of a immolator.
Yeah. So what I used to do is I used to run like 4 Melta-Guns, and then I would run a Superior with an Inferno Pistol or a Combi Melta, and now I have 5 Meltas shooting out of an untouchable unit from a vehicle point. It made them very, very good for relatively cheap. And back then you could make like Sisters tanks for pinball saves, and I get why they changed it. I know why they moved Repressors to Legends, but it just makes me sad inside a little bit.
Tear.
But you know what? It's fine. It's fine. Sisters still have everything they need, and frankly, I'm just fine taking regular Battle Sister squads instead of Dominions to still do the same thing, just with a few less extra shots.
So I'm a fan of the Dominion squad because one, they have the Vanguard move, so you don't necessarily need a vehicle for them. Like I said, they do work good in small little groups of 5 inside of a vehicle, so you can definitely do them that way. And you get 4 special weapons. One of the reasons I want to talk about why I personally like them is because when we get into the Retributor unit, the Retributor unit is in your heavy slot.
That's right.
And that's going to be flooded very quick, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, 3 squads of Retributors going to fill that up.
So Dominions are going to act very similar to your Retributor squad because they have special weapons instead of heavies. But
they're just slightly weaker versions of the Retributor guns.
Yep. They're slightly
quite a
weaker
bit cheaper
vehicles.
actually too.
But they're in the fast attack slot. So you can have 3 Dominion squads, and then you can spend your heavy slots on other stuff.
Yeah.
But otherwise, they're Sisters with special weapons with Vanguard.
I think really, if you're going to run these nowadays, I think, one of the 2 reasons I would take them. The first one would be A, because I've already filled out my Retributors and I want more heavy weapons, or like weapons that can do a lot of damage. Or B, you can utilize the Dominions to make use of like those good stratagems like Holy Trinity and stuff like that.
Yep.
Because then you can just fill them up with all these weapons that
A flamer, a melt,
affect that properly.
A bolter.
Yeah. So now all of a sudden, they're starting to shoot better. They're starting to do more things, and it almost kind of unlocks what Retributors do. The problem is you're paying CP as a premium instead of points. So in some ways, I think it's still probably arguably worth taking them. I think it just comes down to whether or not you want to give up the objective secured, because otherwise they're just Sisters. So yeah. All right. So moving into Seraphim.
Seraphim. I'm a big fan of them. I understand that they're not very good because when it comes down to it, their primary weapons are 2 bolt pistols.
They're Raptors. That's what they are.
Yeah. So you can give up to 2 of them.
2 models in the unit can take 2 pistols of a special weapon type.
Yep,
the hand flamer,
or the Inferno pistols.
the Inferno pistols.
And then you can give like a plasma pistol to the Superior.
Right.
But ultimately, what you're taking them for is this jump infantry unit. They got a sister stat line. They do have angelic visage, so again, they have a 5-up base.
Yep.
Invuln.
Yep.
But I really like them because you can bring them in up to a 10?
9 inches. This is deep strike.
10, well, no, unit of 10, right?
Oh, yeah. They
A
can,
unit of 10, you can bring them in, and you can use the stratagem to fire in the movement phase.
Yeah, so
and
increases
unit-
the range to.
Yeah, it
6
increases
inches.
the weapon range by 6 inches,
Yeah.
and you get to fire as if it's your shooting phase, and then you still get to fire again later in the shooting phase.
That's right.
So all of a sudden, this 10 sister unit can dump out 40 bolt pistol shots in one turn.
Yeah, which is kind
And
of.
that's assuming you
kinda
don't
neat.
take the special weapons.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, that stratagem alone, was a Burning Descent or something like that, makes it
Yep.
really, really good. Now, of course, if you're running Seraphim, you're probably expecting to use that stratagem, especially since most people who play Seraphim run the special weapons.
Yep.
Infernos being the big one. And they kind of play the role of an assassin unit, which is kind of cute. Or like if you run all bolt pistols in a 10 girl unit, you can just like pump out a whole bunch of bolter shots and wipe out screens and stuff, which is kind of nice. And in addition to that, they also have the ability to play actions, which I
Yes,
think is
they are
probably
also
their most effective role in the army. They're a utility unit that can be very scary immediately when they drop, and being able to fire twice is just cute. And what's even funnier is when an action's performed right at the end of the movement phase. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes.
So here's what's interesting about that. In the movement phase,
You can come in,
You can
shoot,
drop in, use
and
the
then
stratagem.
still perform an action.
yeah, so now they're shooting all their Infernos, and now they're performing action on top of that. So you can deploy scramblers and stuff like that. And this is done after the shooting has been done. So
I believe so, yeah.
it's quite interesting how that works.
So with that being said, the hand flamer and the inferno pistol only have a 6-inch range. Now, when you use the stratagem, it will go up to 12 inches, so
Yes.
you can come in and
You
shoot
have
right
to
away.
use a stratagem to be able to
But
shoot.
then later in the shooting phase, you can't, you won't have the range to shoot
The
that.
effect only lasts through the movement phase. Yeah.
But like Rick said, you could just take like a simple unit of 5 of them with like 2 inferno pistols, come in, use the stratagem to
Four
shoot.
melta shots.
Shoot 4 essentially melta shots because they're D6 damage, strength 8,
They are
4.
melta pistols. Yeah.
Melt the pistols at a vehicle, and then still perform an action. So then you don't care about not being in range in the shooting phase.
Yeah. Yeah. They're
So they have a very strong trick.
they are definitely mostly one-trick ponies,
Yes.
but it's such a good trick that it's generally worth arguing to take them.
At least I'd
In
say
most
at least
cases.
like one unit of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they're a very good unit, and because I have a lot of points in my sisters' armies, unless I'm running just nothing but battle sisters,
Yep.
I'm probably going to take a unit of these girls.
If I was running them, I would definitely put them in Bloody Rose. So then those pistols are AP1, and then like I said, 40 AP1 pistol shots should do a lot of damage, even against like Marines.
I mean, now, okay, I don't disagree with your opinion on that, but I also am a Grey Knights player, and I just load up on Stormbolters all day, and I just watch them do nothing. So, I'm not saying it's not good, but I've also seen areas where bolters are just a joke. So,
Yeah.
I think they can be good, and they're cheap enough to where you can argue that the bolters or the bolt pistols will do enough to consider maybe taking them. But I wouldn't, in my opinion, I don't think in most cases I would ever want to run 10 with just bolt pistols.
So my wife actually played on Tabletop Simulator and did this in a game where she brought in 10 Seraphim and used the stratagem to get those 40 shots we were talking about, but she wasn't playing the Bloody Rose, so they're only EP0.
Right.
She ended up doing 1 wound with 40 shots.
Yeah,
And
and
I'm like,
it can be a
that
problem.
just felt bad.
Yeah, it can be a
So,
real problem.
I admit they're not the best, but
Don't get me wrong.
it's a really cool trick, and
Oh.
when it does work,
Well, 40
it's
shots
really
is 40
cool.
shots,
I know,
regardless of
right.
what the strength and AP and all that is.
what's your role and stuff? You know?
You're probably going to do something with them, and I like it. But yeah, I think in most cases you're going to run the Seraphim squads with the 2 special weapons, and
Yep.
you'll probably use a stratagem. You'll probably end up if you're playing just play scramblers, you're going to use them for the action and all that. So it's good.
And I think part of the reason
They're-
I like them is just the aesthetic of having these sisters with like wing jump packs running around with pistols.
Yeah, and they're great looking models too. They're exactly like the Zephyrim, except they just have slightly altered packs, and they don't carry swords. They carry pistols.
Yeah.
And I mean, mine. I got mine third party, but it's because I like the Zephyrim models so much that I actually just made Zephyrim with all 10 of mine instead of 5 and 5. But with that said, they're great units stat wise and for the little tricks or whatever they can do. So yeah, definitely worth taking. No arguments there. We're gonna go over penitent engines here. No, are we? Oh, we're not exorcists. Sorry, I
yeah, we're going into heavies.
We're going to penitent exorcists.
Penitent exorcist. All right, so yeah, we're going into heavies, and we're on the Exorcist. These things are incredible.
Yeah.
Now
These are
I'm
the
just,
truck of the army.
these things are so good. I would say that you could take 3 every game and not feel bad about it.
Well,
now,
I feel bad for how badly I was destroying my opponent.
right?
But that's the only reason I would feel bad.
So you're always going to be taking the Exorcist missiles because, like I said in the first video, the conflagration rockets just don't compare to these things. Now the missile launchers are more points. You're going to be upwards. It's 195, I want to say, and then you can give it a hunter killer missile. So this is going to be like a 200-point model.
They're a little pricey, but
they're a little pricey.
They hit so hard.
You take 3 of them, and that's like 600 points.
Yeah.
That's like a third of your army right there.
Yeah.
But when you consider they're pumping out 9 D3 missile shots in a turn, it's crazy.
Now, if I'm correct, I'm pretty sure they added blast to these weapons as well.
Did they?
Yeah. So
I can see the conflagration rockets being.
no,
blast,
I think
but I don't think the missile launcher is.
Pretty sure they added the blast for both of them.
All right. Now, with that being said, they still have a heavy bolter in their hull too. So you get 3D3
they are blast.
missile shots per exorcist, plus the heavy bolter, plus a hunter killer missile, which you're probably gonna take because it's only 5 points.
Right.
And you could just miracle dice a 6
because
it only hits on 6.
Yeah.
Or no,
No, Exorcist missile. No,
No.
missile launcher hits on whatever the ballistic is.
yeah, ballistic.
They're not.
They're just one.
They're not
no,
top secret missiles.
Yeah, they're not secret missiles. Sorry, I was thinking of other things.
Yeah. So
So
the hunter
you get
killers are always great, but
you get potentially like 10 missile shots out of this thing. Strength 8, AP3, D6 damage.
well, if you're running a couple of these, you're almost always putting a cannon mist nearby too to just buff.
yeah,
them
to reroll ones.
Now you can put the Palatine nearby, so now you're rerolling wounds of 1 as well.
Yeah, rerolling wounds.
Yeah, these things are vicious vehicles, and what's more is the fact that heavy is no longer a problem for them. They can move around all game long and have to sit still.
Well, their movement is still 12 inches.
And
they can move and fire.
Well, and I think they have, if I recall correctly, they have the stratagem that allows them to strike 1 for leadership. Character smiles in the unit with 12 inches exorcist. Oh, so that's for leadership stuff. They had something in here that was like, allowed them to reroll for a number of shots or something.
Yeah, we went over that.
Prior.
We went over that. Now, because you're taking the exorcist missiles, I was kind of on the fence with Rick. We were on both sides of the fence. I don't believe it's very much worth it because you have to use it before you find out the number of shots.
It's when it's chosen to fire.
Yeah. That's one of the big problems. If you can use it after, it'd be a lot better. But generally, you're going to be averaging like 6 shots, and the reroll is going to maybe net you like 1 or 2.
Yeah. The problem. Well,
extra.
Okay. So first of all, the fact that it's got blast is almost kind of hilarious because that just means like blast is never going to be utilized, right? Because it's not per D6 or
because it's already heavy 3D3,
and it's not per D3. It's per weapon that you get the 3 on. So it's only flat 3 against blast, which is already getting flat 3.
It's already getting at least 3.
So at minimum it gets 3/3 anyway.
Yep.
So blast is irrelevant there. When is this thing shooting at 10 or more models? Probably never.
Probably never. Maybe if there's 10 intercessors, you might shoot at them.
Well,
no, because it has to be more than 10 to get the extra.
It's got to be a lot. Yeah. You're not shooting this thing at Necron Warriors.
No, you're not shooting this at Necron Warriors.
I mean, maybe if you got 3 of them and you want to just kill a squad of 20, sure.
Yeah,
I guess. But here's the thing: is like these things are designed to kill tanks.
I mean,
right?
you kill them on 2s essentially.
Well, it's D6 damage. Like that almost feels horrible throwing D6 damage into 1 wound models.
Yeah.
So my point here is the fact that blast actually hurts them, that it helps them. Because if they get tied up in combat, they cannot shoot anything in combat.
You can fire your heavy bolter.
So they're stuck.
Which is the new heavy bolter damage too.
So that actually is a negative for them. with that said, though, you know, if you really want something dead really bad, I could justify using the CP4. And we've talked about the stratagem once before. That'd be the only reason why I would ever want to just be like, okay, well, I'm using the stratagem, make sure I get my reroll number of shots and all that. Blast is unhelpful, so Blast would almost counter this if Blast was actually effective like it should be, and it should be 3 flat shots per model over 5. Per D3 or whatever. But
it's almost useless. It's almost just a negative to it, which, to be fair, it kind of needed it because.
Wow, they are incredibly strong.
Let's say you got the best you could do. You got every shot that it can randomly fire. You took your hunter killer missile. You landed everything. You wounded everything. They made no saves.
Yeah.
That is 66 damage from one tank.
Yeah.
66.
Yeah.
That is an incredible amount of firepower. And what I was going to get into is defensively, you're like, oh, well, are they glass cannon? No. They're toughness 8 with 12 wounds. They have a 6-up invuln, which I don't know if you have a way to get that.
Vehicles cannot be boosted any longer. So
no, they can't be boosted, but they do have a 6-up invuln, which you can use miracle dice on to just be like, I ignore it.
And they get smoke launchers, too.
They get smoke launchers, too.
Yeah, so they get -1.
Which, to be fair, when are you not wanting to fire this?
Well, I mean, if for some reason they're out of line of sight of a target that they want to shoot, then I could justify using the smoke launchers, because then you're not losing your exorcists, probably. But with that said, yeah, I mean, it's there. It's great if they can use it. If not, whatever. The funny thing about this is, I was really high and mighty on a list that I had built. I was actually like super confident about this list. Took it against a game of Chaos Space Marines when we were playing with Cade, and he decided he was playing Alpha Legion, and I put all of my stuff together right next to these exorcists. And there was 3 of them, and he goes first, ends up killing the one exorcist, and then uses a stratagem to make my exorcist blow up on a 4-up, and literally it just wiped out like 90% of my army.
Well, it blows up on a 6, and 6 inches for D3 mortar wounds. So it's not a huge explosion. I mean, this isn't a knight blowing up, but it's your standard vehicle explosion.
Well, yeah, and your whole army's underneath the explosion, and that was my problem, is I put everything underneath it.
Yeah.
It was a big deal. It was actually really funny because I was not expecting that at all. But yeah, this is a tank that you can feel confident taking because it is just so good.
It is just so good. Like I said, you can feel confident taking 3 of them and not feel bad about it.
Yeah. I honestly, like I said, I would feel bad for my opponent. That would be the only problem.
So this is almost going to be exclusively your anti-vehicle, anti-monster unit.
It is a very good anti-tank, and
and like we said, you could shoot at warriors if you really wanted to. It's not going to be bad against them.
Well, and even then it gets like, not only does it have the missile launcher, it's got the heavy bolter too, which now can start drowning Marines. It can drown. I mean, it's pretty vicious.
It's pretty vicious.
And a toughness 8 chassis is pretty crazy too.
Yeah, I think the only bad side is like if they pin you in a corner where you can't fall back. It's only got 3 attacks hitting on 6s.
Yeah,
so it's not fighting in close
combat. If it gets locked up in combat, it's pretty much done. But
it's pretty much done.
The average sister player, even the bad sisters players, will probably know enough.
The average sister player is going to have a horde of battle sisters just screaming these things. So they're good. Take them, and I think
laugh it up, chum it up. With your
laugh it up, chum it up with your friends.
Game.
They are so good not to take.
Yeah.
They're actually gonna, for the rest of your heavy units, you're gonna have a real hard time picking them over an exorcist.
The Retributors are probably the lone exception, and only because they're cheaper in most cases, and because you get Meltas as opposed to this, which the new Meltas are probably better than the Exorcist missile launcher.
Why don't we go into Retributor squads right away? So they're sisters who can take up to 4 heavy weapons. Now, I would argue that the Retributors are even a hard press or a hard take against the Exorcist, because you get more durability with the Exorcist. Granted, it's in one model. You get more shots really with the same amount of like damage output.
We're gonna have to disagree on that one. I think there's actually a pretty good argument between the two of us. And that's the thing, is if you can have a good argument back and forth, you know how good these two units are.
Yes, don't get me wrong. These are both incredible units, but they're fighting for the same slot.
So here's the thing about
this is like the two Super Bowl teams going to the Super Bowl.
That's exactly right. Yeah, this is NFC North, or this is NFC versus AFC. Retributors, right? So they're the infantry version of the Exorcist. Multi-meltas, yes. Heavy bolters, yes. Heavy flamers,
Less so. I mean,
still yes, but not as yes.
They get 16-inch heavy flamers.
Well, they have a strategy too, so
yeah,
they are very interesting. The flamer option. With that said, the heavy bolter and multi-melta updates just put these things so far over the edge that points-wise, you're hard-pressed to find anything better for the points in this army.
I want to say they're like 14 points, and then the cost of the weapon.
Yeah,
so it's not too bad.
So first of all, multi-meltas are incredibly strong regardless of what unit they're on, even if they were on ballistic skill 4 platforms. But these things can move and fire their heavy weapons without penalty. They get increased range to their flamers. They get increased range to the multi-meltas with the stratagem. They get extra damage with the stratagem. they're D6 plus 2 within half range, plus 1 with the stratagem. So they're a minimum of 4 damage with the stratagem in half range. That right there gives them, so you got 4 sisters.
You can get four of them, the multi-meltas, which get 8 shots.
Yep.
And you have...
So that, your exercise...
Again, let's say everything hits, everything wounds, you did the stratagem.
Yeah.
That'd be, what's 8 times 7?
What's 8 times 7?
No, it'd be 6, 7, 8, 9. What's 8 times 9?
Are we talking about for damage purposes? Or?
Yeah. Like, these things can be doing like 80
well,
damage.
yeah, so they can do 8, they can potentially do 9 per, at best.
Yep.
But, let's say on average, okay? Let's say on average they're doing, it's a D6 plus, so 3, 4, 5, 6 damage on average.
Yeah.
Because it's the D6, which is 3, and then plus the 2 within half range, plus another 1 with the stratagem. So it's on average 6 damage.
On average.
With 8 shots. Now, they're probably getting reroll 1s. They are probably getting 4 up invuln saves, which is something the Exorcist doesn't get. Now, granted, they are toughness 3, so they're obviously wounded easier.
Yeah.
But AP minus 2 equals 0 against them.
Well, Exorcist gets
it
that
does
too.
Against the Exorcist too, so that's also nice because they do get the order benefits.
So that's a wash.
But the thing that puts these models over the edge is the Immortium cherubs. Now we've talked about these already before.
Again.
The Immortium cherubs allow one model to fire its weapons again. Now, that's just from one cherub is 2 more shots from the melta-gun. So that puts them up to 10 shots, and then you can take 2 of these. So that gives you 12 melta shots from 4 girls. That are going to be 6 damage on average at half range. Hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, and potentially can reroll 1s to wound down.
So
at 36 inches.
Because
it's plus. So the 24 inches plus.
When you use the stratagem.
Well, let's just assume in this case you're always going to use a stratagem. So. Yeah, so plus 12 inches. So yeah.
So you're half range at 18.
Yeah, 36 inches. So 18 inches, 18 inches, and these girls can move and fire without penalty, so that helps.
Yeah, that helps.
I think if you cut off the fact that they have to be in half range to benefit from that, that's a problem. But even at long range, they're still on
Even at long range, they're still D6,
damage.
so they're still the same as Exorcist.
Yeah, and they're still doing 4 damage at long range.
Yeah.
On average.
Yep.
So you're only losing 2 damage, which isn't a big deal. Plus, you can use Miracle Dice on them, just like you can with the Exorcist.
Okay. Well, 1 per unit.
Well, depends on whether you get the Triumph.
Yeah.
The Triumph was used too, so.
Yep.
So you can stack up so much damage just from these 4 girls.
Yes.
Yeah, they're not as durable in most cases. I totally agree with that. The Exorcist potential is really high. And I think the thing you got to look at is whether or not you need the durability, because in terms of like their damage output, I think the Retributors are probably just a little bit above the Exorcist, where the Exorcist has still got high damage output, and then you add in the Heavy Bolter, which is an addition as well. I think retributors just might be a little bit more expensive. I could be wrong, but I think
I believe if you take, what was it like?
184 for my unit of 5.
Yeah,
And that gives them the multi-meltas and all that.
yeah.
good
It's
stuff. The 2
5
champions.
sisters, so that's my problem I have with the Retributor squads. Is I will admit they actually have a higher damage potential than the Exorcist,
Yeah.
which is crazy when you think about it.
Well, it's because the multi-meltas are just.
That's really saying, yeah, the multi-meltas just took them so far above.
Mhm.
But when you're taking those multi-meltas, you're coming very close to the same cost as the Exorcist,
Yeah.
and you have 5 wounds at toughness 3.
Yeah.
No, yeah, you can give them like 4 pin wounds. That's all really cool.
Yeah.
But it's 5 wounds. Like,
Yeah.
if you get hit with like a smite or something,
Yeah.
that's gonna hurt.
Well, okay, so
Bad.
so let's also consider too. I mean, granted, it is 5 wounds. I totally agree there, and then their toughness 3, which is also a problem. You can take up to 10 retributors, but you only
You
get
can.
4
So you
special,
can-
4 heavy weapons.
You can fill them with a little,
So you can add some bodies for
Little
bleeding
bodies.
purposes. And
but
since
now
you're
you're
already
costing
taking,
over 200.
well, and the thing is like you're already taking Sisters of Battle anyway, so you're just medicating like some of those troops towards your retributors instead. Which okay, that's fine. They just become bolter heavy supports without
Yeah.
reactor security. And whatever. Okay, so yes, they're not as durable in most cases, and I totally agree with that. The Exorcist is also so the way you got to look at it is the Exorcist is basically
One.
it's one single model with 12 wounds with a lot of durability.
Yep.
So it's a big target. Where
It
if
is.
you got a couple of Retributor squads on the table, people will pay attention to them, but they're not going to put everything into them. And there's a lot of stuff out there nowadays, like Haywire and stuff, that's going to do well against vehicles. Whereas like infantry, there's, every weapon does fine against infantry, but nothing like super specializes in it without a lot of shots. And the fact that these girls can also get 2-up saves where the Exorcist cannot.
No.
So that's also kind of something you got to consider as well.
Yep.
But I totally agree. These are like, you're basically looking at S tier versus S tier,
Yeah.
and you got choice A, you got SA, SB. So yeah, I think they're very close to being a wash. Your Retributors are a little cheaper. They have more damage output potential, but the Exorcist is definitely more durable. I think you can't go wrong taking either of them. And
No.
frankly, I would be just as fine taking 3 of each. So taking 3 Exorcists and 3 Retributor squads.
Yeah,
and
you can do it in multiple attachments, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I
That's
mean,
kind of what
you
we're getting at.
pay
It's
some
like,
CP for it, but
you spend some CP and they're competing for those slots.
yeah. And they're, like, you can't go wrong. You can take either one and
You
they're
can't
fine.
go either way. But just like the Exorcist, you could take 3 units of Retributors and be just fine.
Yeah. The only thing that I have against Exorcists, and don't be wrong, that I totally agree with you that Exorcists are phenomenal, is the fact that Exorcists are swinging, because that 3d3 shots, they may end up with the 6 shots on average.
Yeah, you could end up with
They
3.
could get 3, they could get 9. I mean, it's all great in the long run,
They are a little swingy.
but if you only get 1 turn with the Exorcist and only gets 3 shots, you're going to feel worse than if you got 1 turn with your Retributors and got 12 shots and then they
Yeah,
died.
yeah.
So it's a pretty big difference there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally agree. They're both good units. Retributors do have more damage output. Exorcists are they're going to be a little safer in most cases because they're going to sit back, they're going to fire at long range,
Yep.
they're going to be okay. They don't have the infantry keywords, they can't like hold objectives very well, they can't, there's trade-offs to both, but they're both great.
They're
They're
both great units. Take multiple units of them,
great.
whichever flavor you want. You're
Yeah.
not going to have a bad day.
Yeah, and even if you're running Bloody Rose, you're still not going to feel bad about running these kind of units. You need this. You need the firepower. Anyway.
Well, the Exorcist is going to benefit very little from Bloody Rose.
Yeah. Well, I think even Retributors, they don't really see a benefit
No,
for Bloody
no.
Rose.
You can get an extra
If
attack.
they get tied
and
up in
AP,
combat
weapons go-
or whatever, it's not like you want to punch.
That's
them.
not where they're supposed to be as a
Right,
combat,
right.
no.
So in terms of what you want, it's basically just you pick what you like better, and
Yep.
you're fine both ways. So moving into mortifiers.
Mortifiers.
and I think we can probably do penitent engines.
Yeah,
as
we
well.
can put these two together. So they're almost the same model.
Yeah.
It's just that the Penitent engine has flamers and close combat weapons, whereas the Mortifier, well, actually, no, the Mortifier has more ranged options. So you can give the Mortifier 2 heavy bolters, which are the new heavy bolters.
Yeah.
So you can get a lot of firepower out of them. You can also advance with them, and they have a special rule where you can turn their heavy bolters into assault 3 instead of heavy 3.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Yeah.
And their ballistic skill is 3+, so they're not bad shots. They ignore wounds on a 6+, so they have feeling of playing 6+, whereas the penitent engines
5,
have 5+.
Yeah.
So they're a little better there.
Well,
Otherwise, both units have a 4-up save.
Yeah.
The mortifiers have a weird, like sergeant kind of one, because they can be taken in units of
anchor.
1 to 6.
Yeah, the anchor is pretty cool.
And that one has a 3-up save.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's identical to the rest.
Yeah. So okay. In terms of what you get from these two, mortifiers, I think, I don't know if there's any argument to take penitent engines over mortifiers.
Yeah.
Primarily because mortifiers are Adepta Sororitas, and I'm sure that you're about to get into that.
Yep.
Adepta Sororitas, you benefit from all the stuff that you would get as if you were a sister battle. They're not infantry; they are vehicles, so they're going to suffer from some of the infantry benefits they would have gotten. But with that said, they get all the Sororitas stuff. They get the order traits. They get the
Not orders.
oh, they don't have orders.
They don't have order, but they are Sororitas.
They still get sacred rights. They still get.
No, they don't get sacred rights.
Do they not?
No.
Oh, I thought they did.
So the mortifiers are, lore-wise, these are sisters who have fled.
Well, that's right. It's a specific.
Yeah, they have showed cowardice or fled in the heat of battle, and they're paying penance by being put inside of these machines.
Oh, right.
And the penitent engines are just regular, like, citizens or people who have committed crimes, and they're being put inside of these machines.
Okay.
And they like crucified to these machines that they can be launched into war.
Well, even then, you still got the Sororitas keyword, right? The
You
Sororitas
do,
keyword
so
unlocks some stuff, like stratagems, some auras that you wouldn't otherwise
Hospitaller?
get.
No, because they're not infantry.
No, they're not infantry.
So yeah, they're kind of rough to fit in there. A couple things might work on them.
Well,
because
they
they're Sororitas.
get the buff from Celestine, right? No, they don't, because they're not infantry. So
Yeah.
I'm hard pressed to say what they benefit of, but I know for a fact they get, at the very worst, a couple of stratagems that they can utilize that are better than penitent engines. With that said, I think mortifiers are a little cheaper, right?
Mortifiers are actually a little more expensive,
more
but they are slightly better.
Okay. Yeah. They're the same model, right? They come in the same kit or something?
They come in the same kit, and you can make one or the other.
Yeah.
They're a plastic kit now.
Well, 60 versus 50 for, so you're paying a 10-point premium for the mortifiers.
Yep.
With that said, I think the mortifiers, like, I think even if you look at like all their weapons and stuff, the flail, the buzz blade, the fact that they get the heavy bolter option instead of the flamer, and they get the new heavy bolters, so they're doing.
They get the new heavy bolters, which is a real boon for them.
So it's it's two heavy bolters as opposed to the two heavy flamers the penitent engines get. And like I said, there's stratagems in here that are Adepta Sororitas only, so that these can actually utilize that where the penitent engines wouldn't, at the bare minimum.
At the bare minimum.
So, but otherwise, they're in terms of what they do, they're very similar. They fill a similar role in the army. I just think it's interesting that you have the option of having the heavy bolters and the mortifiers as opposed to the flamers on the penitent engines. Like I said, I can't find a reason why you would want to run the penitent engines over the mortifiers.
The only real advantage is like the penitent engines have zealot.
Yeah.
But with that being said, they hit on 4s, whereas the mortifiers hit on 3s.
Yeah.
So is it a 4 with rerolls, or do you want to hit on 3s? Because they both have either the buzz blades or the penitent flails.
Yeah.
Buzz blades are like a strong single damage attack, whereas penitent flails you get 3 attacks instead of 1, but they're weaker. 3
for each with +1 strength, -2, 1 damage.
And
then strength 3 -3, 2 damage with +1 attack.
Yeah, you can actually take 1 of each if you really want.
Yeah,
kind of spread it out. But otherwise, they have Anguish of the Unredeemed. When a model with this unit is destroyed, roll a d6 and a 4+. Each enemy within 1 inch causes d3 mortal wounds for the mortifiers.
You get a whole bunch of chats on here from Dermot to Blunt. I don't know why I didn't pick these up sooner. They must not have hit the chat sooner, but let's take a look at what he's got here. He's got Blessed Bolts with 4 Storm Bolter, 77 points. Is really good against SNL. Minions are great. Yes, definitely agree there. So for Stormbolters, you can still definitely utilize that.
Those special weapons.
And I think that's really what you want to do is you want to take the special weapons and utilize like the stratagems and stuff, and that's what makes them pretty good.
They're like the only unit that can really use blessed bolts to its full effect. Because otherwise, like Battle Sisters can only get 2 Stormbolters.
Yeah, so Dermot and Blunt also said, yeah, but try to land a 10-man Seraphim unit. So this is when we were talking about Seraphims.
Yep.
It can be difficult to try and get 10 Seraphim all into one blob when they're dropping together. So I think
they're on the new 32s.
So that can make it difficult to get a unit
bit.
as opposed to like a 5-man unit. And then again, that also reinforces the reason to take the special weapons and a 5-man unit.
With that also being said, they don't have to be within 9 to like get a charge. They can be 12 inches away with their pistols.
Yep. So he also said they're great in 5 units to clear space with a stratagem for other reserves to land. I agree with that.
I agree.
Zephyr Man and stuff like that. Said don't forget the hand flamers or pistols as well, and profit from the stratagem as well as that's 4d6 strength 3 -1 from the special weapons.
Yeah.
I think there's an argument to be made from hand flamers. My problem is that they're just so random in shots.
They're random in shots. They're strength 3, I want to say. So you get a lot of shots out of them, but I don't know how much more effective they are than just bolt pistols. I personally would take the Inferno pistol over it all day. That way I can at least hurt vehicles.
Yeah. Well,
because I'm not really scared against like guardsmen, which the hand flamer is the best against.
Now I don't remember. Do hand flamers cost anything extra, or are they free?
If they do, it's very little.
Let me take a look here real quick. So hand flamers.
I think they're like
4 points each extra. So 2 per pistol essentially. So you're paying 2 points per flamer as opposed to the bolt pistols. And I think that's also another reason why you could justify taking the pistols over the flamers.
Yeah, they're cheaper.
Just because if you're gonna run like stuff that's just designed to kill infantry, just run them cheap. So
the other thing is they do have frag grenades, so if you really need.
So when we were talking about Retributors and Exorcists, he said, yeah, but they compete with the Retributors for the slot, and we did go over that.
We did go over that.
So the downside, Retributors multi-meltons are probably the strongest heavy weapon squads you can have, coming from reserve with 8 36-inch multi-melta hits, and with Cherubs 12 shots that basically kill everything.
Yep.
I am 100% in agreement with that.
Completely agree.
The fact that you don't have to worry about them dying because you can put them in reserves and then bring them in when you want. It's vicious.
I think we're both on the same page. We could go as far as saying the Retributor squad is almost one of the best units in the entire game.
I would argue they are one of, if not the best, infantry for sure.
Infantry for sure.
Heavy weapon unit or heavy weapon toting unit in the game. Yes, 100% agree with that. The reserves option, I think, even makes it more interesting because then you don't have to worry about them getting shot off before you get to utilize them.
I honestly didn't think about reserves too much.
So that makes
like
it kind
maybe
of cute.
in vehicles, but I forget about the reserves a lot.
He also said, when it comes to raw firepower, they're probably the best unit we have. Yeah, definitely the best unit we have in terms of raw firepower, without a doubt. Exorcist is 3 points. Bring it down. Yes, it does give up. Bring it down times 3 points. I think. No, it's only 2 points for 11 plus, isn't it?
Well, yeah, because they changed it. Because it's 12 wounds, so yeah, it'll be 2 wounds. So even if you take 3 and they kill all 3 of those, which you're probably losing the game as it is.
Yeah. So they can only give up 6.
They get 6. Yeah, because they nerfed that
secondary. It was 3 points before, because anything over 10 used to give up 3.
Yeah, it used to be bad before because they could get like 9. That didn't feel great, but now it's 6. It doesn't feel too bad. It's not gonna discourage you from taking Exorcists.
Yeah, he said on top of Assassinate, we always give up anyway. With Sisters, Sisters got a lot of characters.
Yeah, well, a lot of characters.
They're easy to kill, but frankly, Sisters don't mind when their characters die because they get stuff out of it.
They get Miracle Dice, yeah.
Miracle Dice, you can get, I think, even CP out when characters die too. It's nuts. He also said taking 3 is not that good. Having 1 in the backfield firing is great, but 3 is too much, I think.
They kind of fit the same role as like the Doomsday arcs. You saw those all the time in 8th because when you have multiple random shots, when you take multiple of them, it evens out averages a lot better.
Yeah.
Say one only gets 3 shots, and then the other one gets 9. Well, now you're averaging 6 across the field.
I think.
So it helps even it out a bit more, but I do agree with what you're saying.
I think taking 1. It'd probably be if I was taking an army, I'd probably run 1 in most cases. I don't know if I would run 3 all the time. But I think the fact that you have so many bodies on the board with just the Battle Sisters alone,
it's
you can justify taking 3.
It's pretty easy to screen with them. But I would agree that when you're taking 3, it's just that much harder to screen because you can't afford to have them in combat at all.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, you can't have the Retributor squads in combat either.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can be that much harder to screen for them. So what I was saying is like you can take 3 and not feel too bad about it, but you might have a harder time protecting them, and that might encourage you to take only like 1 or 2.
Yeah.
But then we're getting into like random shot.
Yeah. I think if I was running 3, it would be because of the fact that I want to utilize my canoness that I'm basically sacrificing to sit in the backfield
To get the most out of
Buffalo
every
game.
roll once.
3 of them would allow her to basically pay her points back immediately, as opposed to potentially, over the game, maybe pay her points back. The reroll ones, when you got 3 units that are firing nasty shots all game long, that'll add up quick. So, I'm probably not going to run 3 if I'm running an army most of the time, but I would feel just fine running 3 and being okay with it.
Hell, take 2 and then take a Retributor squad.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing too.
Mix
So
and
you can mix and match just fine. I could be just fine not taking any exorcists and running 3 Retributor squads and just running them with the rest of the blobs too. It is what it is. But like I said, this army is so good because you can just mix and match everything
This
and
codex
feel
is really
great
good.
about all of it. It feels great about all of it.
It's just a really solid codex.
Yeah. Okay. So getting back into mortifiers and penitent engines.
Mortifiers and
I think we covered
penitents.
all the questions here.
I think ultimately these guys are really hard to sell. I like what they're trying to go for, but I really feel like they need to be closer to like Dreadnought equivalents.
Yeah.
Because that is they feel a lot more like a Sentinel. They got toughness 5, 5 wounds, 4 farm save,
Yeah.
and they don't have an invuln.
Well-
Sure they have like a shrug on a 6 or a 5, but it doesn't really keep them alive very well, and they're really reliant on just having a whole bunch of wounds.
Yeah. Okay, so my opinion on them, and I agree with you. I don't know if I would want to run these very much, but flavor-wise, I think they fit a role that's actually pretty unique to the Army. These are basically your Repentia on big walkers. And the models, I like the old models better than the new ones just because they got the chicken legs as opposed to their little stubby legs now.
Buzzblades are strength 8, AP3, flat 2 damage.
Yeah.
So
And
they'll chop through Marines pretty good.
So these things actually used to be more vicious than they are now. They did get Zealot before, which I believe was still the reroll ones to hit, and then they actually used to fight twice.
Well,
They don't do
Mortifiers
it.
didn't exist until this codex.
Yeah. Yeah. So penitent engines are the ones I generally run. But I don't see myself running them very often anymore. If I did, it's basically for flavor. Back prior to this codex coming out, they used to fight twice, and I think that's what made them so kind of interesting. Granted, they weren't durable at all, so they would just die before they get there.
I
most of the
remember
time.
killing them with bolters.
Yeah, so they would die before they get there, but I've had a couple of games where they've just gotten into combat, heavy flame and everything before charging, charged in and just decimated full armies by themselves, 2 or 3 of them. Now they can still fight twice, but you're paying 3 CP to do it, which it's hard to justify.
It's hard to justify.
Hard to justify with 4 attacks apiece.
So
5 if you're running 2. I don't know. It's all right, I guess. They're not my favorite units anymore.
no,
But they are flavorful.
They're very flavorful. You've got these criminals or disgraced sisters who have been exiled from the orders and they're being crucified in
strapped to
these
this big metal machine
and
with
then
blades on it.
they're still using them as edges of war to get their effect out of these scum.
Yeah.
So it's very flavorful, but unfortunately on the tabletop, they don't have a real good place. They suffer from a few problems. Like they can get expensive really fast. Like you can take mortifiers on you up to 6.
Yeah.
But when you're paying like 55 points a model, now we're like 300-ish
They
points.
pay a lot of points for something that may never even get there.
Yeah, for something that might not even get a save. I mean, they have a 4-up save, no invuln. So you get hit with AP3, you have no save. You're just relying on your 5 wounds.
Well, and I guess
Your toughness 5.
I must have
so-
read that wrong because I could have sworn they had like Shield of Faith and Sacred Rites and all that stuff too.
No.
It blows my mind that they don't have that stuff.
No, well, it's because they're exiled sisters.
Well, no, I know.
They're disgraced.
I know they don't get the order stuff, but still, they are sisters. That's the thing that always bothered me about penitent engines, though. Like, they would have been so much better in previous editions had they gotten the sacred, well, not sacred rites, but gotten the order traits and all the other stuff that go along with sisters. they just don't. So.
They just don't, and that kind of really holds them back. They can't benefit from a lot of things.
Yeah.
They fit awkwardly in there.
They're a cool unit. They're just a sad unit.
They're a lot like the Arcoflagellants and Crusaders. They
Yeah.
just kind of they feel like auxiliaries.
Yeah.
All
All right. So yeah, we probably beaten that horse a little.
Yeah.
Dead. So let's move on to the rhinos. Well, rhinos are rhinos, and these are
it's a
not.
rhino.
Well, these aren't just any rhinos though. These are
They're better rhinos.
These are 6+ invuln rhinos.
Yep.
These are the best rhinos in the game.
The best rhinos.
They get Acts of Faith, they get Shields, Shield of Faith, they get Sacred Rites. These are nasty rhinos.
I mean,
they're mean rhinos.
Well, all you need to say is a rhino with a 6-up invuln, then people are like, I'm sold.
Yeah. So
I'm sold.
okay, these things were vicious in like the beta edition and when the index came out because these things had like 4-up invuln saves and they were just damn near impossible to kill.
And they're 10 wounds, so they only give up 1 for the secondary
yeah.
game, I don't remember.
But otherwise, they're just, I mean, they're rhinos with smoke launchers, which you're going to use.
Yeah.
So they're going to be -1 to hit, 10 wounds, just like a normal rhino.
You can take a hunter killer missile.
Well, yeah, you can.
A little extra firepower never hurts.
But otherwise, these things are transports with a 6-up invuln that move the battlefield, have 10 slots, which is great, and they can transfer. They can, they can transport anything.
You can have your 9 Repentia and your Superior in there.
They move any Ministorum infantry. They move porters, dialogus, hospitallers, but they can only transport Episaurus models if they have order. So that's a problem. But that basically just means like they can't transport things like the Mortifiers.
Well, no, they can't transfer like
They can transfer them flagellants and stuff.
Yeah, okay, you missed.
Ministorum infantry, yeah.
Yep. So they can transfer those.
They just can't pick up the big units.
Rhinos in 9th edition and even to like 8th edition to an extent, they have really kind of gone by the wayside. Yeah. You don't see them a whole lot. Now I understand there's kind of like better.
That's because
there's better transports and you're kind of paying points for a transport that might not be necessary.
Right.
When I ran Black Legion, I love to run rhinos, and mostly because I still got like a decent firepower out of them because they could take 2.
Well, you got the Havoc launchers.
And the Havoc launcher, so
yeah.
they're a little exception because they had a little bit of firepower. But mostly what it was is the ability to charge that relatively cheap vehicle in and lock them up so that they can't fire Overwatch is really good.
Yep.
So like we said, you can take a Rhino, put your Repentia in there, get them out, charge that Rhino in, and now the Repentia are safe from Overwatch.
That's right. Yeah. Well, and you know, being a dedicated transport, you're not limited to only being able to take 3 either, which is great.
Yep.
They're 80 points, which is relatively cheap for a transport.
It's about Rhino cost.
And they're for transports, they have a large capacity for the points you get out of them, and the 6-up Feel No Pain with a 3-up base save. I think these things are great for sisters.
Don't forget they can stop psychic powers with active faith.
Well, right.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Rhino stopping a psyker.
Oh, it's hilarious. Yeah, it's weird, but it's funny. The Sacred Rites, you know, you might benefit from, but then they also get the AP -2 = 0 for Battle Heart as well. Which,
Valus Heart.
Which all of a sudden it's like, wow.
I fired my heavy bolter at your Rhino and you ignore it on 3s.
These things are just like brush off the AP -1, -2, no problem. They get 6-up invuln, 3-up base. These are the best rhinos in the game, and sisters are great with them. I can't find anything wrong with them, to be honest. It's pretty pounds.
No.
So
they're a Rhino. They do Rhino things.
take them if you like them. Take them.
If you like them, take them.
If you don't, if you need more slots than what the immolator can give you, take them. Yeah, especially with the repressor being gone, because now the repressor can't take the 10 slots anymore and all that. Yeah, they're worth running.
No, it's over.
Yeah. So immolator. Let's move into that one.
Immolator.
This is the other dedicated transport.
Yep. However, it can only carry 6 models.
Yeah. 6 is kind of sadness.
But it trades that out for the ability to have what?
2d6 heavy flamer.
2d6 heavy flamer. Well, no, it's just a twin heavy flamer essentially. Or 2d6 heavy flamer.
2d6 heavy.
Or you could have a twin heavy bolter, or you could have a twin multi.
Yeah.
So whatever flavor you want to hunt vehicles, you want to hunt infantry. And then it has a hull mounted heavy bolter to begin with. So you can get 9 heavy bolter shots out of this, which is the new heavy bolter.
Yeah, so I think that's actually one of 2 ways I run them. A lot of people like the heavy flamer on them. That's what they originally came with, the immolation flamer. it was, you know, it's all great and well, whatever. If you like flamers, sure, whatever.
It's
but,
flavorful.
but the heavy bolters and the multi-meltas with the stat changes to their new weapons, it actually makes emulators really good, like really good. They're fairly cheap. They have all the benefits the Rhino gets, which is the Shield of Faith, the 6-up. They get the Sacred Rights. They benefit from the Sacred Rights more than Rhinos.
More than the Rhino, yeah, because they can use it more.
Yeah, so they're a vehicle that can benefit from Sacred Rights, which is great. They get the Axe of Faith, so if they need a Miracle Dice for some reason, they can.
Yep.
That twin multi-melta you slap on top of that thing, get out of the way.
Getting 4 shots at that thing now.
Yeah.
Well, and it's heavy vehicle, so you can move 12, get into your half range for the new Melta effect. Real easy.
Yeah. I mean, it's only one twin multi-melta. So it's twin multi-melta. Multi-melta is 4 shots, right? But it's only one weapon system, and that's the only part I see about that problem in terms of how the weapon works, because sometimes you want to boost like certain things, where if it's 2 different weapons, you might be able to utilize it differently, split up the shots and stuff. In this case, you have to fire all the shots at one thing. So that's the problem I have with it. With that said, though, the heavy bolter, the multi-meltas, both those weapons are great. The emulator's cheap enough to take this on as a platform. It's toughness 7, 10 wounds, 6-up in and save, 3 at base. It gets the smoke launchers, the Shield of Faith, all the other options that otherwise, you know, all the other sisters tanks get. And this transport slot is a problem, but the fact that this thing kind of acts like a firing tank with the transport capacity is what I like about it.
It's kind of like a half and half. It's a transport and it's a combat tank, all rolled into one. So it's a nice amalgamation of both. It does get a little bit pricier than the because I think it gets over 100 points pretty easily. Especially if you take the multi-meltas. I personally would run it with the twin heavy bolters.
125 flat.
Yeah. The twin heavy bolters, because that way it's putting out 9 heavy bolter shots. You get effects from the Sacred Rights, so you probably get like AP2 on those. Yeah. That's plenty of damage output right there. And then on top of it, it does have the 6 capacity. So like I was talking about earlier, you can take Death Cult Assassins in a unit of 6, or you could have like 5 Retributors and like a character in there.
Yep.
6 is a real nice big number. That's why like the Drukhari Venoms going up to capacity 6 was huge.
You know, fit that character slot.
5 guys and a character.
Yeah. 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 The emulators in. Okay, so the reason I like the emulators so much, not only do they fill the role of both the tank and transport, with the loss of the repressor going to Legends, these things got so much better with the new codex that they almost made up for the fact that the repressor left. You lose some transport capacity, you don't get an open firing ports like you got before. But with that said, this thing can kick out enough damage to be quite a pain in someone's neck. And it's not like, just like with the Exorcist, they can't just ignore this thing, because 9 heavy bolter shots is no joke throughout a game. And for 125 points, I mean, it's pretty nasty.
Well, and that's the other thing about it, is it's a transport. It's in the transport slot, so it doesn't fight for heavy slots or anything.
You're not limited to 3.
You're not limited to 3.
You can take 6 sisters units and then run 6 emulators.
Yeah.
And that's 9 times 6 shots from heavy
bolters.
bolters.
That's a lot of heavy bolters.
That's scary. And it's not expensive either. It's
no. Probably rerolling ones.
You're not even at like 12 points
hit and wound because it's next character.
Yeah, that's pretty wicked.
Yep.
So, but yeah, so that covers the emulator. The last thing I think in this book is the Battle Sanctum, right? That's the last unit. Okay, so the last one in the book that we're talking about is the Battle Sanctum. Okay, well, I'll let you talk about it first. What do you want to say about it?
The problem with the Battle Sanctum is not so much. It's a fortification. Yes. There's not a problem with the data sheet itself. It's more of the rules regarding fortifications and buildings. Yeah. That really kind of holds this thing back. Yeah. With that being said, it's one of the best fortifications out there.
It is the best fortification in the game currently. Yeah. It's the only one that you are most likely going to be able to utilize and be very happy with how it performed. Yeah. We tried this in our game with Carcharodons, and it did a lot for me throughout the game.
Oh yeah.
Getting 1 extra miracle dice just for putting the by every turn.
Just pumping out 1 miracle dice almost makes it worth it itself.
If Chaos gets within range of it, it starts dropping their leadership values. I mean, and it's small enough you can place it in the battlefield, as long, assuming that
Yeah.
you're setting your terrain up and not overloading the terrain on the board. You theoretically could still run into problems with, that rule of 3 inches or whatever for fortifications. So
Yeah.
it would suck to pay, whatever the points for it and not being able to use it, because it just falls off the board essentially.
Yep.
But it gives the light cover. You get the benefit of cover. So it's still, it's still good.
Yep.
Honestly, I think this thing is a pretty good fortification. But yeah, again, it lies in the problem that it is a fortification. So you're automatically paying at least a CP for it, bare minimum, and paying the points cost on top of that, which you can argue is not worth the CP.
As we've been going through this book, we've been saying this is infantry, that is infantry, this can use cover, that can use cover. And you can just bring this to the battle, even if you're just bringing this to have more cover on the table.
Just bringing your own cover.
That's an effect of itself.
Yeah.
Bringing your base infantry down to 2-up armor is really good.
Yeah. It has to fit in your deployment zone, so that is kind of a question mark too. Pretty sure you have to deploy within your deployment zone. So it would be really nice to stick this thing right in the center of the table, and then just run all your sisters up in a blob in the center table and split off the units so they still get the cover and all that. That would be I think borderline overpowered, but it would make the fortification justifiable in taking it. With that said, I think if you can find a way to fit this thing on the board, it's still going to pay for its points throughout the game.
How many points is it?
It's not much. It's very, very cheap. Yeah, 55 points.
Yeah, 55.
So
I thought it was 50.
You're giving up a sister squad to get 5 miracle dice and cover for your units all game long.
Yeah.
Pretty good. So I like it a lot. I think it's if I'm going to run a fortification, this is the only one in the game I would ever consider.
Yes.
With the way fortification rules currently work. But then again, I would never take this in a competitive game, because there's a lot of times where you're going to end up putting this thing, you're trying to put it on the table and not be able to fit it, just because of the way the fortification rules work.
Because basically at the end of the day, you're paying for a lot of abilities and no board presence really, because it doesn't hold objectives, it doesn't have weapons, it can't even soak up shots, because it's essentially not even, it doesn't even have a profile.
You can't attack buildings.
You can't attack.
The rules currently, you can't attack them, so.
So you're paying your 55 points for abilities for your army.
I mean, and they're justifiable.
They're justifiable, yeah.
I won't complain about getting an extra miracle dice every turn.
No.
For 55 points. No. That's well worth it to me.
Yeah.
I love my miracle dice. So I like it. So, okay. So a couple more units we're going to talk about here, since we've gone over all basically the stuff with sisters. I don't think there's anything else we're going to talk about in the book, right?
I think the only other thing I was going to talk about is the immolator kind of pushes the rhino to the sidelines, because unless you really need that 10 transport capacity, the immolator is just going to be a better choice.
It comes down to whether or not, in my opinion, if you're gonna run a lot of larger sister squads, the rhinos are worth taking. But if you're running a lot of 5-man units, just for holding objectives, which in a lot of cases you are, the immolators are going to be better in most cases. So, okay, so just to kind of finalize things here, the last two data sheets we're going to talk about the Palatine. We're going to call it
Palatine.
All right, so okay, this chick is, like we said before, she's a lieutenant, and I'm gonna do.
So yeah, she's another sister character. She actually has weapon skill and ballistic skill too, which is really nice. But largely why you're taking her is for Fury of the Righteous, reroll wound rolls of 1, but for friendly order models within 6 inches.
Yeah.
So even your exorcists get this effect.
Yeah.
Just another model you can sit around and make your other unit stronger.
Yeah. She's a lieutenant. All right. So she's a lieutenant that has the ability to take a plasma pistol, power sword, frag, crack grenades, bolt pistols. So you can swap out that stupid bolt pistol with plasma, which is what I did with my model.
Yep.
She is pretty great because the army doesn't have a lot of sources for reroll ones.
For wounds, yeah. There are things like the Zephyrim. I did that right. They just flat reroll wounds.
There's a few things, and they're kind of
there's Junith, but they're very few and far between. Yeah. The army just really doesn't get to reroll wounds.
Well, and the fact is that this thing blanket covers the whole army right now. So
any order.
It's great because with that blanket coverage, we don't have a points cost yet, but I'm assuming she's going to be something like just under what a canoness costs.
50,
probably
45,
5 times less than a
50.
canoness. So once we do get a points cost for her, I'm just assuming she's basically the lieutenant. She's going to play that role of a lieutenant, follow the canoness around probably, just to make sure she stacks an extra auras on. You get your reroll hits of 1, wounds of 1, for less than probably what you pay for Junith by herself, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, Judith is a little up there. I want to say she's like 135 points.
You're getting more
But
out of
I mean,
Junith
you're getting a
from
a canoness, you're getting a palatine, and you're getting this vehicle. You're getting a mini immolator.
Yeah. Well, she also gives a +1 involved as well. So.
+1 to involves.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's. That's why we were talking about Junith is so good. She's order locked into Martyr of the Lady, but if you're playing that order, you are going to take her because she is so good. She covers so many bases. She gets so much out of
Yeah.
it.
She does 3 things. She does
Four.
the job.
I heard she does 4 different things for
Well,
Rami.
okay, yeah. So in terms of her auras, she does what 3 characters can do together.
Yeah, Canis, Palatine, the Magifier, and then she's still like a vehicle.
Yeah. She is, yeah, she's very good. But the Palatine allows you to take something that's it allows you to take whatever order you want and still be able to fill that role that you otherwise wouldn't get with Junith, or without Junith. So it's a cool sculpt. I mean, there's nothing super unique about it. It's basically just like a, I don't know, maybe less flashy version of a canoness, I guess.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a decent model. I think everything about it is good. I want to see what the points are because that's my biggest curiosity about taking this thing. But you know, lieutenants actually they only have what is it, a weapon skill 3? I want to say no, weapon skill 2, ballistic skill 3.
Yeah, that's why I was pleasantly surprised to see that she has a weapon skill and ballistic skill too.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean,
Okay.
even though we're comparing her to a lieutenant, in some ways she's actually better than lieutenant in terms of how accurate she is.
Yeah, some ways, yeah.
So it's
Well,
kind of neat.
Having a
She can't run around with
having
power
a
fist and all that.
plasma pistol at ballistic skill 2 is always appreciated.
Yeah. And you can replace the bolt pistol with a Rosarius. So she
can get a 4-up invul.
She actually has 2 pistols, and she gives up one of them for plasma.
She does not have a. Oh well, she has Shield of Faith, but she doesn't inherently have a Rosarius.
She naturally comes with a plasma pistol and a bolt pistol. She normally has 2 pistols, and you give up the bolt pistol to get the Rosarius. So yeah, you're going to want to take the Rosarius because that gives you the invul.
Yep.
But if you want to be cheeky and just run around with 2 pistols, it's kind of cute because now you got this chick running around with 2 pistols. Only Seraphim can do that. So it's kind of cool.
Yep.
But at the same time, that's more just a flashy thing. You're generally taking Rosarius.
I was actually very tempted to do that in Chaos because Chaos could take an aspiring champion with 2 pistols. I think.
Yep.
I was actually very tempted to take like 2 plasma pistols and just have them.
I think it's because of that gunslinger thing where she just
It's just that
gunslinger
gunslinger aesthetic, which is really appealing.
Well, what's more, she actually gets a power sword on top of the 2 pistols, so it's like
Holds in her
wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, she keeps it in the scabbard until she needs it, but
Yeah.
it's cool because she's got that very gunslinger type thing,
Yeah.
but then she's got like the anime part where she like pulls out the sword and starts whipping people with the sword too. So I think it's quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I like her. I think she's good.
I think she is a very
She's gonna
welcome
fill-
additional army.
Yeah. She's gonna fill a role.
She's got an HQ,
Mm.
so that's very good. Not seeing her in an elite slot because you're so flooded there,
Yeah.
and you have so much room available in the HQ slots. Because we have canoness, we have the name characters,
Yes and no.
and a missionary if you really want.
I'm going to run into a problem personally, and that's because of the fact that I love my canoness that I'm always taking.
Yep.
I love my Celestine, which I don't ever want to live without because I love her sculpt and I love everything about her rules.
Yep.
And the Triumph is just so good. It's just so good, and it's like the greatest centerpiece model probably in the game, maybe with an argument of like the Silent King. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting finding a way to fit her in without, not feeling bad about it. With that said, though, if I want to be cheap, I'm going to take her every time, and I'll just drop one of the 2 expensive characters, and it'll be fine. I think she's great. I'm going to probably be running her a lot. She does fill a role that you otherwise can't get in the army without Junith. So, yeah, definitely a good character. It's going to be real interesting to see this addition to the army. So, yeah, definitely cool.
Yep.
The last data sheet I want to talk about, and I don't have the book in front of me. I should have pulled that out prior, but the last sister battle that we have not talked about, and we're going to include her because of the fact that she is a sister battle. She needs to be in there. Ephrael Stern and Kaiganel. Kaiganel being the solitaire who left his order, whatever he's from, I don't know. Basically banished himself. Kaiganel is basically Stern's protector. Stern is the only infantry female sister in the game with a toughness of 4.
Yep.
She's the only other character with a toughness of 4, other than Junith, and she's got a smite that's not a smite, which is cool.
She's got Satan power.
She does not like chaos. She does not like chaos bad, and she is like just shy of what a slash cannoness can do. She's vicious in combat, especially when Kaiganel's paired with her. The two of them together can be an outright nightmare. This is a unit I would run if I needed like more wounding in the army. And honestly, they're not too expensive. I think it's like 125 points for the two of them together. And they have a combined 11 wounds between them, with Ephrael getting the 3-up, 4-up, and Kaiganel getting the 6-up, 4-up with a -1 to hit, I believe, on the unit if Kaiganel's within range of her. I think he's got a bodyguard rule for it too, or something like that. 5 of feeling pain. He gives her a 5 of feeling pain too. So, yeah, it's a unit that's pretty cool. They have to stick together. It's kind of weird seeing a Harlequin model with a sister's model and them just kind of running around, but I'm definitely glad they added her. She's definitely a super fluffy character. She doesn't take up an HQ slot, which I think is cool.
She doesn't?
She's not. Yeah, she's
weird.
She's got the
anything else in the game do that?
She cannot be a warlord addition during deployment. You can set up models well ways to the same battlefield, so they also deep strike as well. And it's because they're cast together by fate thing. She does not. She's just an addition, just like the Inquisitor, just like assassins. They don't fill up the slots. They're just additions to the army. So
I gotcha.
I think it's really cool that you can take them without filling slots, and she just basically plays a character slot and does it. She's cool, like just super cool in terms of what she does. I have my reservations about the sculpt a little bit, but I do. It's kind of funny because she's got like the I don't know, Dragon Ball Z kind of like hair where she's like, ah, and it's all just kind of going up in the back.
Yeah.
The positioning seemed a little weird, but otherwise I think the sculpt overall was pretty cool. Kaiganel was definitely really cool. It's really neat to see a Harlequin solitaire without a mask on.
Yes.
You never see Harlequins
Never.
without their masks on. Never. They always love their masks, so with him not having one on, that's pretty cool to see that sculpt. And honestly, this, for what you're paying 125 points, you can justify taking them on the list and not feel too bad. Primarily because of the fact that sisters are such a good army, you can afford to give up 125 points of your army and still have so much left on the board that it's fine. So, Ephrael Stern, if you want her for flavor, take her. She's good sculpt. She fills a character slot without taking a character slot. And you get 2 models instead of 1 with 11 wounds. Cool.
Yep.
So, yeah, she's kind of durable. Overall, I think that's probably going to wrap it up for our sisters.
I think so, yeah.
Our sisters review here. In terms of the faction focus, we have, I think we've gone on quite a bit about like how these armies fit together, in terms of how they mesh together really well with each other. In terms of like sisters, everything in the army kind of fits together really well. GW is getting so good at like making everything in the army do something. And never like feeling horrible about taking those units, because even if they're not the best in the codex, they're still good enough to be able to take, and there's still enough stuff that can fill the role or carry the rest of those units just fine. So sisters are in a great spot for 8th edition, or I should say for an un-8th edition codex. I am extremely excited to see what they're going to do with 9th edition.
I am extremely excited for the 9th edition Sisters book. It can be really good or it can be bad, because this codex transferred from 8th edition to 9th flawlessly that it's like reinventing the wheel. Like, how are you going to improve on this without either 1, making it broken, or 2, well, actually, like the second one is like, how do you might make it worse.
My guess is they're going to remove, and this is the thing, is you can add or remove stuff from this codex and it's still going to be fine, as long as it's not too much of either one. I don't see too much getting added to sisters to make them much better. Maybe some changes sideways instead of up or down. I could see, some shifts making the units different. I'm guessing that they're going to start adding like core in and stuff like that. So
Yep, that's what I was going to bring
a
up.
lot of your order stuff is no longer going to be available to all the units. It'll be available to certain units, and that's fine. I don't think it's going to hurt the army enough to where it's going to, make a big deal out of it. Exorcists might lose a little bit of their power primarily because of the fact that they're not probably going to benefit from orders, the reroll ones and all that stuff.
They might not.
So
We'll have to see.
it's going to be interesting to see what GW does with all of that. But I think they could just leave the Codex alone right now as is and be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's performing very fine in 9th edition
It's
right now.
one of the best armies in 9th edition.
Actually,
in
yeah,
terms
it's
of
like
tabletops.
It's one of the best codex in the entire
fighting
game
for
right now.
the first slot overall.
Yeah.
I think several tournaments, and I want to say it was what is that, Best Coast Pairings or something like that, had them listed as the best one. They were number one. So we had a couple more chats here, just to kind of finish up here. We had let's see. He said, I think this is when we were talking about the 2 heavy bolters and 15 attacks in melee for 60 points. That was the when we were talking about the little fighting dudes.
Warfighters?
Warfighters, there you go.
Yeah.
So they get the heavy bolters, which is great and all that.
Yeah.
They fight twice like Repentia. Yes, they do, but you got to pay 3 CP for it.
Yeah.
No.
3 CP
No.
is tough.
Well, you're already spending it on the Repentia. You don't want to spend it on everything else.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say is like we're going through this book and I don't think there was anything that we really hated. Like even mortifiers, like they feel clunky and they don't really work in there, but they're not like terrible units. They still have 2 heavy bolters. They got buzzsaws.
Yeah.
Like they're still deadly and they're relatively cheap. So nothing in this book is like really bad. They're just all competing for slots.
Yeah.
It's like I could take this A tier unit, but I also have this S tier unit in the same slot.
Yeah.
It's like, oh.
Okay, so he also said it's weird you're reading this out loud because most of the time you address the things right after. Yeah, we've been addressing it. We're covering our bases here. We have to backtrack sometimes, but he said, by the way, really enjoying the format. Rhinos with lots of happy, friendly Repentia in it are the best. I do agree. I like 9 Repentia with a character, all riding a Rhino together.
Yep.
That's great. Immolators are great. Yes, they are. Drive them into the enemy line and let them stratagem explode when they die. That is the best thing about Immolators. It's hilarious. Get them in, shove them as far forward as you can. Multi-melted death, everything. Heavy bolter death, everything.
That was one thing.
Blow them up for free.
They explode easier, don't they?
Guaranteed, I think.
Well, the stratagem, but are they like?
No, they're not like the.
They're not like hellhounds.
No, I don't think they blow up on 4s.
Nope, they explode on 6s.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he said can't wait for Repentia with exploding 6s from Sacred Rites, plus A from Preacher, and plus attack from Preacher. Reroll 1s on hits and wounds from Canis. Palatine, it will be awesome. Yes, it will.
Yes.
Strength
Yes, it
6,
will.
strength 7, rerolling hits of 1, rerolling wounds of 1. Phenomenal. Yes. Great thing. Only in first name Harlequin character and it's Imperium. Yeah, I laughed about that too. We have a Harlequin player in our group. He was so excited when he saw Kaigano, and I was actually
And then it turns
honestly, I am not a fan of his Harlequins because his Harlequins are always mean to me. But
I never had a
I
problem.
was so excited for him when that model popped up. I'm like, yes, finally! And then we were just joking around. We're like, it's probably going to be a Space Marine or something like that. Sure enough, the darn thing is Imperium. They can't even use it. It's like they got a named character Harlequin that Harlequins can't use.
Yep.
That's awful. Okay, so you said love it. Crusaders, Repentia superior, Gemini superior. Yep. Also, don't take Force Orc slots. Yes, the superiors, as long as you're using a unit,
As long as you have
their
a
superior does not take
Repentia
a slot.
unit, the superior doesn't take a slot.
Yeah, so it actually opens up more elite slots for you, which is great.
Well, I mean, you're taking a Repentia, so you're just one
yeah.
for the 2.
Well, and what's funny is like they could just as easily include them in the unit. But,
Yeah, it was an interesting take how they kind of separated them out like that because the superior only works on Repentia.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's kind of cute, but it's, yeah, whatever. Also, I said I'm scared for the core keyword. probably no more rerolls for Exorcists, and that's exactly what we were just talking about.
Yep.
I 100% agree. I think
That's
a worry of mine.
That's one of my worries.
Especially when you got Repentia. Or
You're gonna start
Retributors.
You're gonna start shoving core in here, and that's gonna make some of these clunky units even clunkier.
Yeah, it's. I wonder, and that also makes me wonder if like Retributors are going to get core too. I would think they'd probably get it, just because like Marines got theirs for their heavies. You know, like all their long fans.
That's the thing. Is like, yeah,
Crusaders.
Marines have core on everything.
They got them all. Like,
but we also look at like Necrons, and they have core on like very little.
6 units.
Yeah, it's
Marines
5.
got like 30 and. Yeah.
It's pretty 5. I'm
Necrons
pretty sure it's 5.
That could be frustrating. I agree. I think the Exorcists are probably going to suffer a little bit, and that might actually almost seal the deal on Retributors being better. But it's only if Retributors get core. Now, if they lose the ability to reroll ones and all that too, that could be a problem. Then they stay about equal, but then they both got worse. So,
but I can definitely see things like the Zephyrim not getting core, because like we were talking about, they're like elite sisters. They're not the core.
That's right, yeah. He said, yeah, Sisters in a great place, but it's GW and power creep is real. You know, power creep is real. I do see good things for Sisters coming out. I see some areas where they could improve the book to make them better and fit the meta a little better. But with that said, if you go and look at where the current spot is at, the fact that they're taking on 9th edition codexes and dominating them, like not just beating them, they are just dominating them. They are like the most feared army in the game right now. And they're not even the newest codex. They're not even in the edition yet.
They're not even in the edition
so
yet.
It's like,
that's why it's terrifying.
It's like, GW, what are you going to do with these girls?
You can't. You're already at the ceiling. You can't go higher. So it's scary because your only direction is down. They can go
higher, but they shouldn't go higher.
Well, if they burst through the roof, then you got rain coming in and all that.
Then when the Xenos codexes come out and they're like subpar, everybody's like, really?
The Tyranids come out and they're subpar, and then you got OP sisters.
Okay, but I am just going to mention this. Yes, sisters are insanely strong, but let's be fair. They got chopped on codexes since 5th edition.
Yes.
They got screwed so bad since early 2000, like 1990s, all the way to what 2015, 16 is when this stuff started coming out.
So all you sister players out there, my heart goes out to you.
We waited forever.
Especially people who have been playing from the beginning.
Yeah.
You had to slug through so much to get an army like this.
Well, and every model used to be metal.
Every model was metal. You didn't even have a codex until a little while ago.
Can you imagine sitting there?
Like there was one in White Dwarf. You had to buy a White Dwarf to play your army. It's so weird.
How awful would it be to have to put together 100 and 150 metal models?
Yeah.
Oh, that would be awful. It would suck so bad.
It's so good to see this very, very, very flavorful army getting the full representation that it deserves.
GW has given them the love they need, the love they deserve, and it's been a long time coming.
Yep.
If this army gets worse, I hope it's not by much, because the Sisters players that have been sticking through, the ones that haven't just been like, okay, well, I'm going to play Sisters because they're good. Everybody else that fits that Sisters mold, more power to you, because honestly, you've been waiting long enough. I feel great about it. I love my Sisters. I've loved them since 6th edition, but even then, you know, they're an army that nobody ever played back then, so it's like, when you saw them, it was a gem, you know? It was, like,
it was a gem.
Cool.
Those sister pairs were so rare, and they're so devoted.
Yeah.
They were the super fans.
Yeah, well, you gotta have faith in the Emperor, man.
Faith in the Emperor, right?
So
they had lots of faith.
We had enough faith, and we got through it, and finally GW did what they did what needed to be done. And Sisters are sitting in the spot they need to be in. Again, I'm definitely curious to see what 9th edition is going to bring them in terms of their codex, but I am totally happy with where they're at right now. Yes, they could improve a little bit. Yes, they could get a little bit of some nerfing and be fine. But overall, this book is in a good spot. They're in a very good spot. And the model range is phenomenal. Even the old models, they mesh so well with the new models. And the new model sculpts are gorgeous. So it's like you could take your old Sisters, add them to the new Sisters, and the army would still look good. Mm-hmm. But like the new sculpts, they just make me want to buy more. Yeah, they're so cool. So with the exception of the Repentia, but that's my personal preference.
That's personal preference. I personally like the new Repentia. He's more fan of the old ones.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm more a fan of the third-party ones, but not the not the third-party ones from like I think. Don't get me wrong, Raging Heroes is fine, but Raging Heroes is the one that I don't like the most. But with that said, yeah, everything else in the range has just been so phenomenal. Since the release of Celestine, honestly, it's gone uphill from
Well,
there.
that's such a beautiful model.
Yeah.
Tough.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, so that's going to wrap it up for our Sisters of Battle faction focus. We are definitely very happy about this army. We're going to be getting some more games in with it here pretty soon. We got, you know, a lot of the army painted up, so you guys will be seeing on the tabletop before long here again. So all you Sisters players, stick around. We're just going to finish up by saying, you know, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. We definitely appreciate that. Appreciate all your support. Leave a like on the channel if you haven't already for this video, assuming you like this. So hopefully you did. And then you know, hit the notification bell so that you guys, you know, can see all the rest of our content. You get, you know, little pop-ups here and there when we go to do videos. So, but again, yeah, thank you guys so much for your support. We'll be back again. Probably not this Tuesday, right? So I think Cade heads off.
Yeah,
but the following Tuesday, we're probably going to be getting a game in, assuming everything works out for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, like I mentioned before, we're looking into getting more weekends in. So hopefully we'll be getting a little more consistent with the schedule before long here, or at least a little bit more set schedule instead of doing this like you know, a couple of games here and then taking a break and so on and so forth. So definitely want to be more consistent for you guys. So you know, this is something we enjoy. We love doing this, putting out what we can. We love sharing our hobby with you guys, and you know, we hope you guys enjoyed showing up and putting up with our crap.
Yeah.
So. But that's going to do it for today. We'll be talking about Drakari here in our next faction focus.
Very excited.
I'm sure there's a lot of Drakari players out there that are excited. Very much so. I mean, I've even seen like the Facebook chats and Reddit and all that.
That is the other army that devoted fans have had to wait a long time for.
Yeah, Drakari, there's a lot of people very excited about them right now, and for good reason. And we'll be talking about them very shortly here, what they can do and all that. And there's been some other videos out there from people on other channels and whatnot, but we definitely want to do our own just to, because you know, we actually just got a Drakari army in the studio. I did an unboxing video for that. But we got enough stuff in here where once we get it all painted up, we're going to have a nice fleshed out army for the tabletop. So then that way you guys can see what we got for that. So definitely excited about that. We'll see you guys next time in our next video. So have a good one.